It's better for not cutting people off if you have headphones on.
Does it stop us from doing so? Absolutely not. But you're much more cognizant of how annoying you are.
Yeah, when you take the ambience away, it kind of makes you more cognizant that somebody's saying something, and so I should shut up for a second.
By about cocktail 3, all bets are off.
And by that, what's that Parks thing that he does?
Protect our parks, man. You listen to that, dude. I love those
guys
man.
when they're like getting ready to puke and stuff.
Dude,
Jesus, the last one they were all on mushrooms and stuff. Maybe it was 2 of them ago. But, oh, good lord.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of most of those guys. That Mark Norman dude, we were just talking about it. He's got a new special on Netflix or something that's fucking hilarious. I thought it was fucking hilarious anyway.
Nice.
So, yeah.
He's either coming to Grand Rapids or maybe just recently played here. I know he was doing, I think, Dr. Grins, I want to say. But that might be over. I don't know, probably muff that one.
Yeah. All right, listen up.
Listen up.
Listen up. We finally got him after much cajoling.
Okay.
After much prodding, stalking, if you will.
The introvert has been converted.
Finally got him here.
Into the lair.
Y'all know, if you've been living under a fucking rock, you know, it's the only way you don't know who this guy is. So he's the fucking, everybody knows. He's the fucking guy from Papa Vegas. One of my, we're going to talk a lot about that because I fucking loved that record. I was the right age. We're going to talk all about it.
Okay.
I loved that record. And then, you know, he's also the resident bass player for the Verve Pipe now. And he's got the fucking killer studio Planet Sunday up north of town here in Grand Rapids. So fucking Joel Ferguson finally up in here. Yo.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
Dangerville.
Man. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, man, like I was saying, like I was probably maybe like 12 or something when that record dropped. Yeah. And my brother, my older brother, he was more like in the scene a little bit and like was more kind of like, you know, he was driving my musical tastes or whatever. And like, you know, it was obviously like the Verve Pipe, it was blew up and shit. And I loved the Verve Pipe too. But your guys' band was more in tune to what we liked, which was more like, I don't know, a little more alternative, the space rock thing, a little more atmospheric. I don't know, you know, we're huge like Failure fans and you got the Failure poster up there. Yeah, I've ran into you at a couple of those shows.
Oh man,
So like to me, that record was like your guys' record, the Hello Vertigo record was fucking like it just fucking hit all the right chords for us at that time. Yeah, you know, so like I was a big fucking fan of that shit, dude. Yeah.
Did you know that Ken Andrews was supposed to produce half of our record?
I had no idea. No,
that was all set up. We had meetings. We had
shit,
it was all kind of set up to happen. And then at that time, he was working on the Blinker the Star record. And they went 3 months over where they were supposed to finish. And so our A&R guy was like, nah, we're just going to have Don do the whole record. And we're like, no.
So Ken Andrews is a big fan of the show. What would you like to say to him here today?
We can call out Ken Andrews.
Let's Dr. Phil the shit out of this thing right now.
That, you know, I got to say, your record's better than that Blinker the Star record. I didn't love that Blinker the Star record. It was okay.
I refused to listen to it because I was so angry.
It was all right. You know, that's how I felt about it.
Yeah. I mean, man, that we were big fans of Failure, obviously. And it was just a dream to be able to maybe get a chance to work with him. And, you know, we were in England writing for it the first time I got to call him, and I was so, you can imagine, just nervous. And I'm in England and trying to call.
Which is funny now because, like, he wasn't even that big at the time. You know what I mean?
But
it's
to us,
like,
he was
exactly.
Just like, wow.
It's when you look back at it now. I mean, even like what I'm saying now, you know, like it's just like, it's funny now, you know. But
we were talking a little bit about that with your boy from Mustard Plug there, Nate Cohn.
Yeah.
Because he got to record with the guys from Hum. We were both like, oh, and it's like, hey, in retrospect, not that huge. But, you know, they're so big in the moment, especially like those formative years growing up, you know.
Yeah, I still love both those bands. I mean, Failure and Hum, you know.
Yeah. Hum got dropped at the same time we did.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit. Like, can you walk me through a little bit of like how you guys got picked up by RCA or whatever, and then like how did it all go down? You know, like what happened
at the end?
No, I mean like what started at the beginning a little bit. Like how you guys, because you got kind of picked up by Brian from the Verve Pipe a little bit, right?
Yeah,
is that how that happened?
Yep, that's exactly how it happened, and it was definitely weird. I was ready to just kind of stop. I had my daughter. I was married. I'd been trying the music thing for a really long time. It felt like this was maybe Papa Vegas was the 4th band that I had tried to kick off. And so I kind of put all my eggs in the basket of the Battle of the Bands, which is a great idea, right? And so we played the Battle of the Bands, the first round or whatever. We made it through, and we were going to the finals, and our guitar player got kind of sick. He was mentally, having some problems.
Okay.
Couldn't make it to that gig, and so it turns out that we used a friend of ours that we had kind of been talking to anyways, and he was Craig Nelson. He came in and played that show, and at that show, Brian happened to be one of the secret judges.
Okay, yeah.
And so he saw us play, and we didn't win, and I kind of went home that night, and I was like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
And literally the next day, as I'm sulking and everything, the phone rings, and it's Brian, and he's like, hey, man, I saw you guys play last night, and I want to send you into the studio and I want to hear all your songs and just think about it. I'm thinking about starting a label. Now the freshman had just kind of hit.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of, in a good spot to be helpful to the music scene. And so I was like, wow, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
And so we kind of made some lineup changes and hurried and went into the studio and kind of panicking like, oh my God, could this actually be something that, And so we went in and recorded those demos. He sat with them for maybe a week afterwards, and he shopped them to his manager, and he shopped them to some other folks, and he was getting a lot of really positive feedback.
Yeah.
And so he called us back and was like, I want to sign you guys to a label. I'm sorry, you'll be the first band.
Right.
So
okay.
like,
Gotcha.
Holy cow! This is you gotta be kidding me. Right when you're ready to leave town.
Seems like that's how it works sometimes.
That is
the swing from that defeat the night before and then the call the next day. That's got to be tremendous to get that.
I'm sweating just talking about it. Yeah. And so then to just make things even more tricky, the day that we signed the deal with him was maybe 3 weeks after this, and Craig, the guitarist, had kind of gotten into some trouble. So this is our second guitarist.
Okay.
And he was going to be unable to actually follow through and end up doing the deal. So then that's when Mick suggested that we get Pete back. And I had just been in a band for 4 or 5 years with Pete called 5 Day Rain.
Okay.
And we were great friends, and it still are. But I mean, he had kind of gone a different direction, and I'd gone a different direction, and I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but it ended up being the perfect thing to do. So he literally joined the band the day we signed the deal with Brian.
Wow. Nice.
And so then we went from there, and Brian produced an EP for us where he went into the studio with us, and it was just a 5-song thing.
Okay.
And a couple of those songs, I think Mesmerized and Long Days, from that ended up making it to Hello Vertigo, although they may have changed form a little bit.
Sure.
And then Something Wrong was part of one song called Little Kisses, which is one of the worst embarrassing song names I think I've ever come up with. And then the verse from that one was some other song that was on there. So two songs became one song that was Something Wrong on Hello Vertigo. So after we made the EP, we started shopping that and started playing shows. We played Mob Fest in Chicago and had a lot of a good feedback there. And then within 3 months of releasing that, there was a bidding war that had started between RCA and Sony and EMI.
Okay.
And EMI Publishing came in and signed me before we signed the record deal, which was just kind of weird because normally they kind of go together. But the guy was like, I really believe in this stuff. And so I signed the publishing deal. Then we ended up we decided on RCA because of the Verve Pipe kind of.
Yeah, because his label was
our management was the same.
Okay.
So it was Doug Buttleman out in Los Angeles. And since he was already working with all the same A&R team with the Verve Pipe that was interested in us,
right,
it made sense to him to just keep it in the family. We've already been dealing with these guys. We know how to do it. It'll all be great.
Right.
We're like, okay. But, we don't know what we're doing.
Exactly. How old were you?
27.
Right. I don't want to interrupt you, but pull that mic right back up.
It's kind of got ED. I know, man. It's got a bit of ED.
Yeah, it does. Well, that's why it's your microphone here. You're the old guy.
I am the old guy.
Once we lock in that Blue Chew sponsorship, it's going to be
There you go. Thanks.
There we go. Yeah, no problem. So I don't remember exactly where we were, but we ended up signing the deal with RCA, and their first thought was these guys are not very old. They're from Grand Rapids, which was kind of unheard of. Verve Pipe wasn't on the map for being from Grand Rapids at that time. They were from East Lansing still.
Okay,
and so Grand Rapids had no radar at all whatsoever. And so they're like, you know what we should do? Send these guys to England, let them write the record, and then they'll come home from having been in England, and they'll come to the studio, and it'll be like, this band just returned from London, and here they are.
The crowning heroes returning back home.
And so that was their great idea for us, and it was awesome. And we went to England, and that's when I spoke with Ken, because we were real, into the idea of having him do it. Our A&R guy, let me tell you, was not into that at first.
Weird, because it seems like such a fit.
But it does to you and I, because we're looking at it from what we like about it, which is the alternative and the space rock.
Yeah.
The A&R guy liked those characteristics, but he wanted them packaged for the mainstream alternative, the shiny shirt, the other thing. And so he was a bit, I don't know what the right word is, just shy about having somebody like that involved. He already had kind of decided that he wanted Don Gilmore, who had done Eve 6, Lit.
Yeah. Great producer.
He's a great producer.
I think he did some Jimmy Eat World stuff later.
Yep, Duran. I found out like a lot of guys. It's so crazy. He did all the Linkin Park stuff, and he had done some Linkin Park stuff before us, and that's an interesting story that we can get into in a minute too, because he tried to have us do something like they would do. And we didn't do it because we're like, we're not. That's
good decision in retrospect.
Maybe, but then we're watching those guys climb the charts, and we're like, maybe we should have done that.
You should have been rapping, dude.
Want all that.
So we're in England, we're writing. That's when I kind of started really having to understand recording, and I was on the phone with my good friend Al McAvoy all the time. Like, hey, because we had this chicken coop it had space heaters, and it was right next to Paul Weller's house. Paul Weller lived out in Guilford area, out in the woods, and there was a wooded side, and then there was this big field that was a horse farm, and there was this little chicken coop that was there, and it was kind of a converted like rehearsal space, with space heaters. So we'd kind of pull down the driveway, we'd do it literally every day. It was like a 20-minute drive from the apartment that we were staying at, and Paul Weller would be outside like raking leaves and stuff. He had just gotten divorced, so he was a bit grumpy, but he would wave, and Pete, ran over and talked to him a few times. And so that was pretty cool to just be practicing next to Paul Weller. So we were just in this fantasy world. We were in England.
Yeah, I mean,
just signed this record deal. We don't know. We're just like.
Sorry, how old were you again?
Now 28, I want to say.
Oh, okay. So you weren't like kids.
No, no. 27, 28 was where I was when we started. Mm-hmm. Pete was a couple years older, but Mick and Scott and I were all around the same age.
Cool. Yeah.
And so the place had a big 32-channel Allen and Heath board.
Nice.
And 3 ADATs.
Yeah, I know ADATs.
And all I had ever used in my life was a 4-track cassette, personally.
Yeah.
So I'm on the phone with Al, like, hey, how do I operate this? How do I? And so, but eventually we got started out, and so we would send 3 or 4 songs every couple weeks. We'd write, get 3 or 4 songs recorded, send the tape. It was a tape.
Yeah.
Across the ocean, the tape would go
via mail.
via the real mail, and then they would listen to it and make commentary and stuff on it. And so then we started toying with this idea of having Ken Andrews and our A&R guy was like, I don't know. I've heard his records. Why would you want to do that? He's just indie. We want bigger for you. We want that. We're we're like, okay, but we just give us. And so he's like, we made some phone calls. I talked to Ken. I sent Ken some of the stuff, and surprisingly to me, he's like, wow, this stuff's really cool. I really want to do it. This is going to be awesome. And we were like, holy crap. So then we go out to we get back from all that, and you do these producer meetings where you pick like 5 or 6 of the guys that you think you'd want to do it, and they set up a meeting
you
date.
Pick some, they pick some. You
exactly. And you sit in a boardroom. And this guy Bob Rock was one of them.
Oh,
and this person's pitching why you should pick him to have him record your record, and you're just sitting there like, on
Bob
your hands
Rock's pitching like you're like, I'll use any of you, please.
I know it kind of felt almost sad, because some of these guys are just legends, and they're they're basically going in there begging for a job, and they're telling you why they think it should be them. And then you've got your A&R guy who's already got his one picked out, which is of course who we ended up having to use. But so that was an interesting thing too. And Don strangely didn't have to. I don't remember doing that meeting with Don. He just kind of got the gig. So it was like a dog and pony show for these poor guys. It was at the end of the day. And so what our A&R guy did to Ken is he made him meet us all and himself for breakfast one morning in Los Angeles.
Cool.
And we were mortified. Well, no, it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be cool.
Yeah.
But we all get to breakfast and we're sitting there and it's, you know, the band and then Brian Malouf, and then Ken shows up, sits down, and Brian just starts grilling him like on, so tell me about what your snare chain looks like.
Tell me, that's
deep
what
dive,
I've been doing
baby.
Tell me what's your vocal chain look like. What compressor would you use in this situation? And Ken just like stone-faced sat there and was answering these questions or whatever. And for the full hour that we were at breakfast, we were just like, oh my God, this is like so embarrassing. He's going to be so mad.
Yeah.
But he answered every question, just got up and left. And at the end of it, Malouf was like, all right, I think we can use him. And we're like, yes! Yeah. He passed the test.
Right,
oh my God.
Right.
So it ended up being cool. But we were very nervous about it because he seemed very, you know, set against doing it. But yeah, once Ken talked to him, it kind of he was totally on board.
Yeah.
And then we were totally fired up. Ken was going to do 6 songs, and they were going to be things like Sermon Underground and On Your Own, and all of the more weird stuff.
Yes.
And then Don was going to get Bombshell and Something Wrong, and some of the more stuff that they felt was more single worthy. And we were like, fine.
Perfect.
Yeah. Is that common practice? Sorry to jump in, but kind of that dividing up the work, is that something that's typically done, or is it more assigned to one person?
It's almost always assigned to one person.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was our way, and our management, you know, said to us, let's be careful and be sure that you want to do this, because there's not very many things that you're going to want to like go up against what they want for you. And so pick and choose the ones that you feel like are really important. And if this is really important, then let's do it. And so we did. We went to it, but then of course in the end they ended up winning, obviously. Anyways, and so it's not very common to have it split up like that between.
I was trying to rack my brain and think back. You know, now I got the level of knowledge you guys.
I would say in the last 20 years, it's become more common because you have songwriters that are so many different groups of people that they're working with that you may have a record that somebody else has a hand in, or multiple producers do, because of the various songwriters that are involved. But back then it was like one producer came in and just plowed through the whole thing.
And I guess like in a way, conceptually, it makes sense from a business standpoint, maybe not musically, because you probably want that cohesiveness. And to your point earlier, like you get that level of comfortability when you're working with somebody, but also like bringing somebody in to crank out like a banger track, some hip hop guy.
Oh yeah. So I mean, we were expecting to have it be a little bit different than it was. I mean, it ended up being fine. Yeah. And Don, as we've already said, is an incredible producer.
Yeah. And it might have been disjointed had you gone that route too.
It truly might have been. And there was Brian had brought that fear up, multiple times, obviously. Yeah. But we ended up not being able to work with Ken, obviously. And so from here, we kind of did some pre-production here in town at Bruce and Wendy's house. And Don flew out here for that. And I think we spent 10 days. Nice little house. They have a little studio in their basement, Flatwater Studios. He came in, we would just play the songs live, and they mic'd the whole thing up, recorded it. And we'd listen back to songs, and Don would make suggestions. And a lot of my songs didn't have bridges. I was just never a big bridge writer.
Okay, interesting.
That was always something that was just like, do I really need to do that last step?
Which is funny, because that's the trend now.
Yeah.
And pop. Yeah.
I know. I was ahead of my time.
You were, man.
And so he helped us kind of, go, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but this needs a bridge. So here's some chord ideas. And we, bat some stuff around. And so by the end of the 10 days, we had the arrangements, what everybody was thinking we were going to do. Everything was done. There was no destination yet. That actually happened in the studio. But I think we had like 13 or 14, and we were planning on between 10 and 12. So
or record them all and cut a few.
Exactly. Yep. And so we had tapes, of everything that we were going to do, set up studio time. Next step is to fly out to Los Angeles. And so we fly out to Los Angeles. We got there like 3 days before our actual first studio date. So we went to go do a studio tour. And who is in our studio finishing a song but Ice Cube?
Yeah.
So we
love Ice Cube.
This is great. Oh my God. And so he's in the break room. The manager's kind of showing us around, and he's been doing vocals, and it's got to be around the Anaconda Time soundtrack time. So I think it may have been a song for that movie even. And so he was in cutting vocals. And so we walk into the live room, and there is this, they had his vocal mic set up in the live room, and they had one of those gigantic partitions that's like got the 6 or 7 billowed. Yeah. Yeah. They're like 6 feet tall or whatever.
Gobo things.
Yeah. Yep. All beautiful fabric. And you can't see any of the fabric at all. There's zero fabric. It's all, he's taken centerfolds. And it's all only black porn. There's no white girl to be seen on this, and it's from ceiling to floor, left to right. You can't see any fabric of the gobo.
That's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
And we're standing there like, holy shit.
Let's go ahead and nullify half of the acoustical properties by slapping shit up over top of it.
But it gets better. As we're walking by, he's in the break room enjoying I think it was a fat boy. In the lounge. So we're getting the tour. As we walk by, Mick, the bass player, reaches kind of over and just snags one and folds it. And so we left and went back to the hotel, and Mick pulls this out. We're at the bar, and Mick pulls this out. He's like, check this out. Like, oh my God.
That's a bold move.
That was a bold move. And we were all kind of like,
sign it.
Cubes killed men for less than that. So
he never would say anything to us. We saw him that day, and we saw him. He was still there the third day when we were actually loading some stuff in. Just finishing up, and both times that we passed him in the break room, he did the same exact thing.
He just walked through. Oh, he gave you the sup. Hey man, I'd take a sup.
That's all you could ask for.
We got 2 of them. We got 2 of them.
Subs,
yes, 2 subs from him.
What studio is this? Where were we?
NRG.
NRG.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. It's Fiona Apple did a couple of big ones there. Radiohead. I don't know, maybe not Radiohead. I may be getting confused, but I mean, gosh, so many of those bands in the 90s did stuff there. I know that like Slate Digital does all their plug-in stuff. They shoot a lot of the videos and stuff in there too. I see it come up all the time. I'm like, oh my God, it still looks exactly the same.
But I can't picture. I watch a lot of them studio tours on.
It's got the Moroccan motif.
Oh, cool! I love that.
It's got the big old Neve console, a great live room. It's just it was a magic place to make a record. Oh my God.
Yeah, I bet. So you start tracking.
Yep.
Like what's the process? What is it? You gonna record it all? Is it drums first?
It's planning on drums first, but everybody's playing. So we've got all of our amps and ISO booths. The drum room is completely dialed in for drums.
Yeah.
And at this point in the recording era, what was the thing to do was to split snake all the drums and set a gigantic PA up in the live room.
And mic it or whatever.
So everything had 2 lines, a line going to the Neve console and a line going to the PA. And then they would just blast the drums in that live room just to get the whole room to just go crazy.
I think Bob Rock sort of came up with that or made it big anyway. I think that's like one of his big tricks.
Well, of course, for us, it was because Radiohead did it on the Benz. So, but I'm sure that Bob Rock probably did it first. But that was kind of where I think, and we were using John Frazier as an engineer, who was a big engineer at Station C here in Grand Rapids. And he had done all the early Verve Pipe records, and he was their front of the house sound guy forever. Cool. He ended up moving to the Tennessee area and became a professor of recording.
Oh, badass.
But and so the first week or whatever, maybe even 2 weeks, was all about that. So we were all tracking, but the goal was to get the drums. And so we'd maybe get 3 takes that we were really happy with, and then we'd all get to go on break and watch Don do the craziest shit ever. He would, because we'd have maybe 2 different reels or 3 different reels that we're operating with that have, say, each one has a take of Important, which was a B-side, so I don't know why I picked that. But anyways, just this big, bombastic drum thing. And so he says, okay, on reel 1, I want to take verse 1. And then on reel 2, I want to take chorus 1. And then on reel 1, I want to take verse 2. And so he would sit there and put these reels up, and he would, roll it up to right before the first kick drum, and then he'd shut it off and sit there with the reels. Get out our razor blade and cut that thing, throw the other reel away, find the same spot in the other. He would, cut all this stuff up. He
did it right like that. Because
he did it himself too, which is not the assistants.
Right. I've seen him mark it with a whatever. It's like a white line of some sort, and then you pull it off, and there's that gadget that has the perfect cut or whatever. But he's just like,
well,
fuck it.
no, they're on the actual Studer machine. There was like a so he didn't have to like free ball it.
Gotcha.
There was like a
it's built
slit.
into the machine.
Yeah,
that's what I must be
sitting
thinking
there with
of.
an X-Acto knife and a 6-pack. No, I got this. I got this.
It's close enough. And then you could put the pieces together and just run a piece of tape down. So it was pretty streamlined in that regard. So
right.
But yeah, so the first couple of weeks were all that, and then after we got all that done, the crazy thing is as we start to do guitars. And we barely got started with guitars really because we spent so much time with the drums, but there was a version of Pro Tools, and they had a guy come in on a laptop, and they would fly all the drum tracks off a tape into this guy's laptop.
Yep.
And then he would go in and just kind of coerce or fine tune all these things, and then fly them back to tape, which just seemed so asinine to me.
It's crazy.
But that's the beginning of where all this
a lot of
where we are
records
now.
at that time were made doing that, because at that time shit sounded so digital.
Yeah.
And like it was like and our ears were just different to what people were used to hearing. So like I know like like I know Queensryche did that, like those kind of huge Queensryche records, they were doing that, tracking to tape, then into Pro Tools, and then back and forth, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so they'd get the drums all fancied up, and then we'd go to town and start doing the guitars. And I mean, there was not only was there a drum doctor across the street, there was a guitar thing across the street where they just had every amp known to man. And Don and John and Pete went over there and just came back with we had probably 30 amps set up in the live room, all just ready to go. Everything was lit up.
Fenders,
and so
Marshalls.
Sung everything.
Yeah.
Stuff I've never even heard of. And I have no idea, mind you. I'm just kind of the dumb blonde songwriter. I bought a Lucille for my first electric guitar.
Okay.
So clearly I was a little off. And then to go with it, I think I bought a Multi-Effects by Ibanez.
Okay. Yeah.
Which
that's
don't
have that piece anymore.
Not the right. That was the first thing to go.
Yeah.
But anyway, so these guys got 30 amps, and I mean, I would sit there, and John would run out and be changing to this amp, to this amp, to this amp, and I'd just sit there and play this power chord. He
just wants to.
And these guys were like losing their minds over which one and how, which mic, and and I'm just like, can we just do it already? Because I'm like, let's go.
I'm bored of the song already.
But man, they had a field day with that, and so we spent a lot of time getting guitar tones, and there was a lot of that stuff that I think at that moment it wasn't necessarily lost on me, but it certainly was maybe taken for granted a little bit. Like I didn't understand how cool really all that, and how lucky we were to be able to even get to mess around that long for ones. I mean, spend a full day just messing with guitars, and then decide, you know what? Now I think I liked the first one better. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. And so all those amps too are all fucking vintage and well maintained. And then this one was on fucking Fleetwood Mac's record or some shit, and like whatever. Like, man, I would have been going nuts too. And
so we got to that. We got through the guitars. We did some, and as we were doing that, I was always sitting on the couch whenever it wasn't my turn to be doing something, and there was always a guitar in my hands, and I started playing this riff. And Don, after a couple weeks, was like, "What is that thing that you're always playing?" I'm like, "I don't know, just something." He's like, "Well, let's record." So I just plugged into the desk. We recorded it. We hadn't tore the drums down yet, and so that little bunch of goofing around ended up becoming No Destination. So that song just came from nothing while we were in the studio, which is kind of cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
ended up being one of my
stuff.
favorite ones.
Yeah.
And so it came time to do the vocals, and I'm not gonna lie, it's the same thing for me as the guitars. They set up like 5 microphones, had me sing a verse. They had me sit down in front of the monitors. And they'd already made their minds up about which mic they liked or whatever. Okay. And so they sit me down, and they're playing me, they're soloing out the different mics. And they're like, what do you think of this one? And I'm like, this is one of those things where they're fucking with me. Because I'm watching them change the button, but I don't hear any difference.
Same thing, dude.
It sounds exactly like me, and I don't like the sound of my voice at all. And so they're, and they're like, you don't hear the difference between those? And I'm like, no, it just always sounds like me, and I don't like it. It's like, but so nowadays, now that I've, and as you know, maybe you felt this way when you were 28, but at that time, I just couldn't hear the differences in those mics. And it's all in like the high mids and the top.
Yeah.
It's the things that maybe when you're the singer and you're kind of terrified already, you're not ready to look at that level of detail yet. You're so obsessed with the brute force
just
of it.
get the thing right, you know?
Yeah. So it was, again, that was a whole, the guitar amps and the vocal mics were just like, okay, whatever you guys say, I'm just going to go along with it. But now I really get it.
Killer mics.
Taste. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think we ended up using a U47 was what we ended up using on it.
Right.
But we didn't finish everything, and Don was starting to get a little bit homesick. We were there for almost 2 months, and we made the decision to shoot over to Seattle so that he could be with his wife. And we did the last, I think 3 weeks in Seattle at what was Bad Animals or Studio X, which is kind of where Alice in Chains and all that Chris Cornell early stuff, Soundgarden, that had been done. And Don, that was the other thing that he came from, and that was not good for my psyche. He was an engineer on those Soundgarden records, and so when we were cutting vocals, he would just go on and on about how Chris Cornell was the greatest vocalist ever, and I was like, shut up, God, I know.
Just crying a single tear in the vocal booth. It's like, God damn it.
That was great, but Chris actually does a little bit more like this.
I wish you could have seen Chris sing. I mean, oh my God, he's the best singer I've ever recorded.
And he's super hot too. You're like, God damn it, can't win.
So yeah, that was what Seattle was all for me. Ended up being where we did probably 90% of the vocals. I don't think we kept much of anything that we did vocally in Los Angeles. So Seattle was almost all icing. So Pete did a lot of leads there. We did a lot of vocals there. I did some piano stuff for Mesmerized. It was just kind of like where we kind of sewed up the loose ends. We did some acoustic additions and things like that. Words got changed and rewritten. But yeah, after that was almost 3 months of solid recording. So
how did they have you cut the vocals? Are you singing all the way through, or like verse and chorus?
In NRG, when we started, we were on headphones, and that's always been a hard thing for me to do.
Me too, man.
I cannot sing with headphones. I get super pitchy, and I'm pitchy by nature, so that just compounds it. So when we got to Seattle, we started with that routine again, and Don got pretty frustrated pretty fast. And so he's like, I don't understand it. He's like, whenever you're sitting at the piano, when you're working on lyrics and you're singing, you sound great. Everything sounds perfect. Then we get into the booth and you put the headphones on and you get pitchy.
Yeah. Yep.
So he went and set up a set of monitors in the vocal booth, and he did that phase flip trick where you flip one of the phase of one of the speakers.
You're really lucky to have somebody who knew how to do that to help you do it, because I struggled for years with headphones of the same shit, man. Yep.
And it was a million times better. And I also, when we got to Los Angeles, I begged the label to send me to a vocal coach, and so I got the opportunity to go to Ron Anderson, and he was just a huge help to me. And I cannot believe all of the people that we would know that went to him as well. Yeah. I mean, he was coaching Bjork. He was coaching James from Metallica, Chris Cornell. I mean, everybody that was anybody had gone to this guy. Yeah. And he was just a super, super help. He straightened out so many things. I was self-taught and self-taught wrong.
Same, yeah.
So he was able to point out to me exactly the things I was doing wrong, and I still haven't gotten great at them, but he definitely, kicked me up a notch. And so once Don set up the monitors and I was able to not have headphones on and just sing in the room, things moved a little bit quicker.
Man.
We still had access to, and at that time there was an Antares pitch correction single rack mount unit. Yeah. And so what he would do to avoid having to run your vocal through it is he would have the wet mix knob. And whenever he would find a word or something that he loved the way you sang it, but it was a little flat or sharp, he would be playing it back and recording it to another track, and he would sit there with the wet mix knob, and when that word would come up, he would just and then get it right back off. So he would just kind of turn it on one word that was flat and just bring it up and then pull it right back up.
That's some sorcery right there.
Yeah, he didn't want to have it like on the whole track.
Yeah, which, again, you're very lucky to have somebody to be able to do that for you. So I went through the same struggle, man. I think a lot of people do, especially in their late 20s, which is right where you were, is you can't do some of the stuff you used to do, and especially if you're doing it wrong, your voice starts changing. So I started taking voice lessons too, and like,
it's so helpful.
I was taught how to play drums. I took guitar lessons, but I never had any kind of foundation to fall back on with voice. And like, you know, when we were playing shit shows all over here, screaming into and I'm singing, but it's like you can't hear yourself, so you're way over singing, and next thing I know, it's like my voice is kind of fucked up, you know, and like, and so I had to kind of unlearn a lot of bad habits.
And if you remember, the bars were just blue back then too. It's just full of smoke,
dude, just
all the way to the ceiling, and you're up on a stage, like literally in the cloud, like going, woo. Super good for you.
It's crazy to think about too, how like smoky that shit used to be.
Oh my god,
like,
you just go home and reek
your
everything.
Clothes the next day or whatever, that you just be like, god damn,
the gear, the amps, the guitars, everything just smelled like smoke all the time.
The good old days, if you will.
Yeah, indeed.
I've got a question. So backing up a little bit, going back to the lineup change, like obviously it sounded like you guys were kind of shitting your pants. I mean, the day you get signed, that something like that to come down the pike is crazy.
The one guitar player that has to go away and can't.
Looking back at that in retrospect, do you think the success thereafter was like in spite of or because of that change? You know what I mean? Like, do you think it worked out to your benefit ultimately, having that kind of chemistry and flipping back a little bit, or was that?
That's hard to answer because I didn't get to live it the other way. So I guess all I would say about that was what was supposed to happen felt like it happened.
Right.
I don't have any regrets about the lineup that we went after it with at all. And I think that was an important thing because I knew that was like a chance of a lifetime. And I wanted to make sure that when we did it, like I didn't have that regret.
Sure.
And so I think that if I would have felt like it would have hindered us in some way, I probably would have done something different.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
So you track all the vocals. How long did it take you? How long did they give you to track them vocals?
Well, I mean, we started in LA, but I think it was like the last couple of weeks and things were not going great, I would say. So, and part of it was Don was just really getting homesick. So we went back to Seattle, and I think we were there for 3 weeks, and that took care of all the vocals, background vocals, auxiliary percussion, piano overdubs, acoustic overdubs, and Pete did some solos and stuff out there.
And then it's time to mix. So it's finished, and then what? Did they do the same thing?
Just when you thought we couldn't get any more crazy, they decide to send us to South Beach in Miami and hang out with Tom Lord-Alge for 10 days.
Yeah. Well, did they give you options, or was it just like Tom Lord-Alge is going to mix it?
That's a good question. I don't recall us having other options, but I also don't recall anybody being the slightest bit worried about it.
No, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he had done, I think, something for the Verve Pipe, not the Jerry Harrison record, but maybe it was a soundtrack thing. But he had just done Manson and Hole and on. I mean, he was doing everything.
Yeah.
And he had just he would kind of go back and forth between, I think it was New York and Miami. And so it was the time of year that he just got there, and he was willing to actually give us a slightly better than normal deal because we were going to be the first of the season or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And he and Maloof had worked together quite a bit because they would disappear and go upstairs and hang out for a little bit without us. And just be up there and then come back down again and be happier. And then
the energy shortly thereafter is just astounding for some reason.
But we weren't invited to that private exclusive thing. But
they were doing yoga.
Yeah, they were doing yoga. But man, he was incredible. We just thought he was a gangster. He talked like a gangster.
Really?
I mean, he just had that like Bronx, like mobster.
They're super Italian or kind of, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen videos of he and his brother. What's the party going on here? I mean, that's how he was. And it was just, we were all in awe of him. And we'd come in there and, you know, he'd sit us down and we'd listen to the first mix. He did like maybe a song or 2 songs a day, probably 2. And he'd spend 3 or 4 hours and then he'd call us in or whatever. And we'd been sitting out at the bar or whatever waiting because he didn't want anybody in there when he was doing it.
Yeah.
And then we'd go sit in and he'd play it for us. And he's like, you know, so what do you think? And we're like, wow, that's amazing. what if the guitar thing could right there could, oh yeah, you think so? And then we do what we were sure was the fader that did nothing.
Yeah.
Like that. We're like, whoa, that's way better. So I think there was some of that going on. But I mean, one cool thing about him is that for us is we had realized in the middle of, I think it was Super Telepathy, that we forgot to do a harmony that we all had heard and wanted in there, and we just didn't do it. And so he had Femio, his assistant, go grab a SM58.
Yeah.
He plugged it right into his SSL console.
Yeah.
And he's like, here. And he turned them, he didn't even have the monitor's face flipped around. He's like, sing it.
Yep.
And so I just was like, and he's like, great. And he put it in there and it's on the record. So so he was super cool. And
that's so key to have somebody who's just open to that kind of shit.
Yeah. And he was, obviously, he's just an incredible mixer, and we were super fortunate to get to work with him. And he was a chain smoker. And we just, as we just talked about, everybody kind of smoked back then, but he had this weird thing where he would only smoke half of the cigarette, and he thought that was his defense mechanism against getting cancer. And so he would
put the bad shit in the second half.
Well, no, he would, his philosophy was that filter filtered out the shit.
Yeah.
About halfway through, when the filter started to turn brown, and you could see that shit was coming through there.
Yep.
Put it out and get another one.
Yeah.
So he would smoke like 3 packs in a day, but they would all be like,
"Cool, man, I stopped halfway through. It's all good. It's all good."
Yeah, and then he would like make fun of everybody. See, your cigarette's brown. That shit's going in your lungs, not me.
I mean, the math kind of checks out in a way.
Yeah, no, maybe he's onto something. Maybe he's.
I was laughing at first.
He's still here.
It's like, I
don't think he smokes anymore,
still
but he's still here.
3 packs a day.
He's still here making videos.
No, that's so killer that you fucking got to work with him, man. You know, like,
I know.
those guys are both legends. Both those guys. I mean, especially like Chris nowadays with all his plugins and everything.
Yeah.
Like they're really.
I think
killing
he
it.
certainly was more able to capitalize on what he does. Whereas I think Chris was just more flamboyant and outspoken, and Tom was a little bit more maybe like me, introverted and didn't want to have all the stuff. And so everybody's more familiar with Chris, but I don't know who's a better mixer. They're both freaking amazing.
They're both unbelievable. Yeah.
Was there an intimidation factor? Like, did you feel, did they make the environment feel comfortable, or was it just holy shit, this is out of control?
No, they made it super comfortable. He made you just feel like you were going to be legends. And then he also, I mean, on the other side of that, I do remember he called out, Maloof really liked the guitar riff in Mesmerized. And so this was Tom didn't think the guitar riff was that cool, and it was just an alternate tuning thing. And I, was just, again, kind of, my head was spinning, and I was not like super opinionated on if it was needed to be louder or quieter. But Maloof kind of walked in and said, I think the guitar riff needs to come up in the mix. It's just kind of buried or whatever, and it's like the most magical part of the song. And Tom's like, it's not that magical. And I was like, funny. Ouch. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, maybe it's not.
Just that totally blunt New York. It's like, yeah, bet.
I don't think so. But you do you, Brian. Yeah.
Oh man, that's fucking great. So he mixes it like 10 days, and then what? Then they're like, we're gonna send you on tour. What they want to do? Was there a video or anything, or like what was kind of the plan?
We started to look at some treatments.
Sorry, that stance sucks.
No, I know. We started to look at some treatments for video, and around the 8th or 9th day of mixing, we started to get some artwork ideas, and the first idea that we had was our product manager, Hugh Surratt, had kind of decided it would be really cool to take like the artwork from the airplane manual about what you're going to do when it crashes. How you're going to, everybody's going to be helpful and put on their life jackets, and it's got the picture of the boy blowing into the thing and the woman helping to put the face mask on, and everybody cooperating. And so he had made this whole kind of CD liner or album artwork that was all bits of that for Hello Vertigo, and that was going to be the title.
That's kind of cool.
And that's where we thought of the title Hello Vertigo. I just took it from one of the lyrics from Beautiful Animal, and we had tried many different names. There was a bar that we would go to in Seattle that was above the hotel that we were staying at called the Cloud Room, and so for a minute we thought we were going to call the album the Cloud Room, and that particular place was kind of cool because the same product manager that came up with that design, he was the product manager for Nirvana during Nevermind. And as we were up there having drinks one night, he let us know that that was the spot that he gave Kurt and Dave and Chris their first $1 million check.
Oh, wild.
Was in that bar. And we're sitting there like, oh my God.
Jesus, yeah.
And he's
so
like,
you got any more of those in your pocket?
the best part of the story is at the end of the night, everybody left, and he said they found Kurt's check on the floor, and Kurt had left with it without it. So
wow.
Kurt left his $1 million check on the floor and was like, I can't take this. I'm out of here.
Jeez.
Which is badass.
Yeah.
It's kind of the ultimate rock star.
So Kurt, right.
Yeah.
So
Legends.
Yeah. Yep. So anyways, we came up with the name Hello Vertigo.
Which is a great title. I think that's a much better title than Cloudroom.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it was the right title. But I was a little bit hesitant about Hugh's artwork. It looked kind of, to me, like pedestrian-y. Like it looked local bandy again. And I was really like paranoid about, I wanted this to be like a real
Yeah, man, for
record.
sure.
And so fortunately for us, and I might not, was it Sugar Ray? Is that Mark DeGraff's band?
Yeah.
Their band, like a week later, came out with an album, and the artwork was almost exactly that, which saved our asses.
Yeah.
Because then everybody was like, we can't do this. And and our artistic director, Brett Kilrow, found a guy who was an illustrator named Mark Ryden, and he is incredible artist. And he ended up making all original art, and all the stuff that was in there was just perfect. It was all much more space themed.
Yes.
We had Dan Winters, this great photographer, do a photo shoot of us in New York. And what he did to make those interesting covers of us, like in front of the plane graveyards and in front of the towers and on the beach and out in the desert and all these spots, he took the photo shoot, went back to the lab, created like 2 or 3 cardboard cutouts of each of us, and then he flew all over the country with these cardboard cutouts.
That's what it is.
And set up
I can see it now. Like
and
I remember
that's why we look very like that. We look 2-dimensional in the 3-dimensional world, because there are all these cardboard cutouts that are supposed to look like really like us, but it's just these cardboard.
That's actually great.
Killer.
That's great.
So we went from like having the most mundane kind of, oh my God, shit art. Sorry, Hugh. To like having the most crazy stuff.
Well, we talked about it earlier. We were like, man, the fucking record cover on this is fucking great.
Awesome.
You know, like,
and it just fits the vibe of the album well. It's
fucking
pretty
nailed
rad,
it on that. I do I'm kind of obsessed with album artwork and shit. I do album artwork and shit and videos and stuff, because I'm like, professionally I do graphic design, so it's like combining my two things of like, I love music and graphic design, so like record covers, right? So I'm like obsessed with that kind of shit. So like, if the record cover ain't right or it doesn't fit the vibe of the record or something, but we were both looking at it again like, that fucking artwork's fucking killer.
And you've got the mediocrity of Sugar Ray to thank.
Indeed.
Shout out Mark McGrath.
Indeed.
Well played. Sir.
Yes, it came out at exactly the right time. My God,
right.
It came out just in time to save the day.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the artwork is got that space vibe to it, and it is sort of like Failure. It's got like sort of similar in that, and I mean, I fucking love that shit, dude. Anything space rock, you know.
So even though we didn't get to have Ken and have the space rock music theme as much, we got to have it in the artwork at least. That ended up being perfect.
All right, so let's keep going a little bit here. What and then what? Like again, is it like you guys got to go on tour? Like, what's the plan? Do you ship it to radio? Like,
well, from there we had to go to mastering, and we got to sit in on that too, which was kind of unique. Didn't always get to do that, but it was in New York at Sterling Sound with Ted Jensen.
Okay.
Who's done everything. Yeah. Again, he's one of those guys.
I know Sterling Sound.
Yep.
Of course.
And so we went and sat in on that, finished that up. Came back from there, and then it was time to start talking about, for us anyways, it was time to start talking about touring. They had kind of decided that Bombshell was going to be the first single. And so I don't think there was much disagreement or anything on that. Everybody was like, okay, fair enough. Bombshell it is. So in the meantime, it was trying to figure out who we were going to go out with. And somewhere, maybe around this mastering time, the Cardigans were on tour in the U.S., and they had an opener with them named Kent. And Kent is a band that was doing really well in Sweden and in parts of Europe. They were Grammy winners over there.
Okay.
And they were signed to RCA Europe, but America started to think maybe we could break these guys here. I mean, they're really doing well in Europe. They're winning Grammys. They're super famous. So step one was to have them come tour with the Cardigans. So they did the U.S. tour with the Cardigans. We met them in Detroit. We went to the show. The idea was, let's find out if it would be a good fit for us, if we kind of would all get along well, if we liked the music or whatever. And so we got their CD before we saw the show and listened to it. And we kind of, I think our initial reaction was kind of having been super obsessed with the Bends at that moment.
Yeah.
We heard that their CD, and to us, the straight first impression was like, this feels like they're trying to be like Radiohead. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't necessarily fair to them, because I don't think it was through anything that they were doing other than the fact that they just happened to be kind of passing in that same point. Yeah. They were kind of a 5-piece band. It was guitar. The singer had a similar tonality to his voice, and it was very melodic, and it was mostly, and most importantly, incredible. And we went and watched them open for the Cardigans, met them afterwards, and I don't remember which one of us it was, but one of us said something to so do you guys listen to a lot of Radiohead? And that almost ended the entire thing. I mean, the whole table just kind of went like, oh, yeah, like that. So apparently we weren't the first ones to accuse them or whatever, and so they were not.
They stole our sound, goddamn, which might be true.
It might be true. So we thought for sure we blew it. We watched them play. We're like, wow, the show is incredible, though. But anyways, in the end of the day, we ended up getting to be the opener for them. They agreed to let us be the opener, and they were going to come do a full U.S. tour, and they were going to give it their all. And they released their single here, and they had a video out at the time.
I've never heard of them.
That's so funny. Yeah, that first tour that we did was all about that. And they had some really, really great singles on that one. That tour was our first time going out like that, obviously, in a van and trailer. And the very opening night of that tour, they showed us like who was boss kind of thing, you know. We were in San Francisco. We played at the bottom of the hill, and there is a famous hotel there. I don't know if it's called the Crocodile, maybe. I think it's the Crocodile, but it's all bands that stay there. And so they had a bus and a trailer. We had a van and trailer, and we were taking turns driving, but they were living the high on the hog. Yeah. And so they decided, let's all get to know each other, and we'll have a party. And they chose my room and Pete's room, as that would be party central. They have a bus waiting for them to start heading to the next California town. We have to sleep a little bit that night, and then all get up and take turns driving. I think around 5 a.m, we're all in our room trying to hang with these guys, and their favorite drink was Red Bull and Stoli. And they would drink Red Bull.
It was
and
right
Stoli.
at that time when
Swedish
it was Red Bull and
bastards,
everything, dude. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, we had probably 4 or 5 bottles of Stoli, and it was just us 2 bands in this one room. And 5 a.m. rolls around. They get up, they walk out, and there was a pool. Of course, it's a hotel. In their clothes, jump into the pool, walk onto the bus, and the door closes, and they take off, and then our alarm clocks go.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
And we're like, oh shit. And then we were just begging our manager, Drew, can you just drive for the first couple hours? And so that was, they showed us, night 1. Here you go, boys. You ready to do this?
Big leagues now.
And it just didn't stop after that. I mean, that was the first night. And after that, it was just a night after night of a bully beat down by a band. I mean, we would watch them play, and your jaw would be on the ground like, God, it's just like, how can we get that good? They were just so tight and just like never had a bad night. It didn't matter if they slept. It didn't matter anything. Wow. They were like a machine, a well-oiled, you could tell. For us, this was our first time, and we're kind of like going, oh my God, how do you navigate this lifestyle and just come out and kill? Yeah. And for them, this was their 5th or 6th or 7th time. First time in America on their own. Right. But in Europe, this is old hat
and shit.
Yeah, old
doing
hat.
Rails off hookers' asses since the late 80s,
And yet I've never heard of them though. So I've never heard of this.
Well, they didn't work here. The next record they gave them a little push again. That was called Hagnas to Hill. Another. I mean, if you.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna pull it up.
Hagnas to Hill is one of my favorite records of all times. Damn. And that was they did those 2 records in English. Everything else is in Swedish.
Okay.
And in Swedish, it's so weird. They can change, like in their first couple records, early stuff, it sounds a bit more electronic fused with guitar. And then right around that Radiohead bump, they kind of went into guitar land and got super guitar and rock heavy.
Yeah,
and then they kind of trajected back into, like, their last couple records were almost electronic and dancey. This sounds, I'm sure, yeah. So the best two are definitely Häggnästa Hill, and then what is the other one called? I can't remember. 747, I think.
Cool. I'll definitely check those
out. Oh no, it's
out.
Isola. Sorry, Isola.
How long were you out with those guys? Was it a couple weeks?
Oh, it was like
months?
it was the full U.S. tour, so it was just under 2 months, probably.
Okay.
Yep. We came back from that, and Bombshell had done pretty well in that. We had got up into the top 20 of the top modern Billboard modern rock charts or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it peaked at like 17 at one point. I have it on fax.
Oh, really?
I have a fax of it. Yeah, a fax came in that showed us at 17. Yeah. But on like the magazine thing, I think it was 19 or 20, somewhere in there. And then so we started figuring out what are we going to do next. And my vote was No Destination, and I was just really intent on wanting it to be No Destination, and they had completely changed course. They decided that we needed to go to the more hard rock, just for Grand Rapids, that would be KLQ.
Yeah. Yep.
So they wanted to use Something Wrong, which was our only really song that I thought was like hard rock like that. But for some reason, they felt like that was the market that we could do better at, even than what we did with the which I completely disagreed with.
Yeah.
And then before that even got a chance to take off, things started to get weird. It's almost 2000 now. Napster's starting to become a thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
RCA was having a bit of an issue with NSYNC, who are our label mates at that time. They were not being fair to them, let's just say. I mean, Lou Pearlman and RCA were making millions off of those guys, and they were paying them like an hourly wage, was what it equated to. And so some people that signed Britney at Jive Records had approached NSYNC and said, you guys need to walk away from this bullshit and we'll sign you. And the kids were like, okay.
Yeah.
And so, of course, RCA was like, well, you can't do that. We have you under contract. And so in 2000, RCA decides that they're going to try to sue NSYNC for breach of contract.
Yeah, yep. I'm kind of familiar with that whole story.
Okay,
a little bit.
Yeah. And so they took them to court, lost. And RCA is owned by BMG, which is a huge conglomerate in Germany that owns almost all the labels.
Yeah.
And so as a repercussion for their losing NSYNC, BMG ordered RCA to cut every single band that hadn't had a top 10 hit in the last year, and so they dropped 30 bands.
Oh, Jesus.
Elastica, Hum, Jive, Papa Vegas.
Well, we were talking about that, so I was pretty right. I was pretty right on my history there. I was saying, I'm pretty sure I actually just thought they were just kind of just wanting to pour all their money into NSYNC, and because that was just the way that things were going, and they just fucking cut all guitar rock bands. Basically, that was my take on it.
Oh yeah, no, it was because they lost all that extra spending money that NSYNC was giving them.
That's so unfortunate. And not to be the ass kiss guy, but I was listening to it again, brushing it up on this morning a little bit. And I was like, God damn, this still holds up, and it's such a killer album. There's so many like catchy tunes on there, but they're well done. It's like, how did these guys get?
It's no Timberlake though, man. You just don't got that straight up Timberlake.
Lance Bass.
You should have went with the ramen noodle blonde hair that he had. Remember?
Oh man, yeah.
If you'd have had that, you'd be on top right now, man.
My daughter graduated from Berkeley. And she did the online Berkeley School of Music.
Nice, yeah.
But they have them go to campus and walk with all the other people that went to Berkeley. And so we went, and lo and behold, who might the guest speaker person that they're going to induct in for my daughter's college graduation be but Justin Timberlake. So I'm sitting at my daughter's.
It's gonna be me.
It's gonna be me. Exactly.
Hell yeah.
So that was kind of rude, but
I love me some Timberlake. I'm a huge Timberlake fan.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
What was it like when you guys are watching your tune climb up the billboards? Like, how surreal and a crazy feeling was that? It's got to be fucking wild. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I don't know how to put it into words, honestly. I mean, I think that because we were in the middle of touring and doing all the other stuff, that maybe made it less that. Like, it seems like it would be that when you just sit and think about it, but then when you're getting your butt kicked by Kent night after night and you're trying to go, how can we be better? We're not good enough.
Right.
And like, oh, by the way, this is doing this. That's great, but holy God, I got to get a handle on this, because I feel like if we don't get a handle on this, that's not going to matter.
Yeah.
And so I think it was easy to get distracted by some of the other stuff that you were working on. So I don't think I'd ever really it didn't ever really like affect me where I was like, oh wow, we're
Swedish assholes really put a damper on it.
They really knew how to
enjoy this moment here.
Our party, man.
Can you throw a show here or there? Can you let off the gas pedal a little bit?
Nope, they couldn't.
It's like the famous Nirvana stories though, where they're like, you know, Nevermind is hit. They got the biggest song in the world. It's like, we're still driving around in a van.
Yeah,
we haven't seen.
Weren't they in Europe too when that happened? They had no idea.
Yeah,
they kind of came.
No clue that people are even listening to this or anything. We're driving around in a van. You know,
yeah.
That's so wild conceptually. Think about the difference between then and now, where you're just out and you're off the grid and you're not hearing about that stuff, versus now where everybody's got the fucking phone surgically attached to their hand.
Man, yeah,
you're not missing out on, like, that's got to be.
No, you didn't
like
have
20
it.
years ago,
we didn't have a fax machine in the van either. And I think we had, that's funny. We had one. The funny thing about this is our mobile phone number is now my wife's mobile phone number. Somehow she ended up with that line.
Nice.
But we had one phone on the road that was for the band to use.
Right.
That's wild.
That was like no one had their own cell phone. It was like for the van. And so, you just didn't have access to that. I mean, we would have to sit on the call and talk to the manager, and he's like, well, it looks like, according to my fax, that you're not. But now you're right, on your phone. I mean, not a second passes that you don't know where your Spotify spin is, or, you can check it whenever you want. And frankly, you become bored and you're on. I mean, people just sit on their phones now. Whenever there's a moment where there isn't something to occupy their mind, it's like, okay, I gotta do this.
Man.
And so, I mean, that would be a different thing. I wouldn't even want to know. I'd probably obsess about everything.
I maintain to this day the fax machine is the most baffling of all inventions. I still can't wrap my head around it. How they get a full piece of paper through those tiny telephone lines. I still can't.
Those confounded ones and zeros.
Unbelievable.
So you get back from that tour, and then, I mean, what, you guys are feeling good? It's... Oh, you get basically. You're saying basically you get dropped, right?
Oh, no. That's what the asshole. What's his name that wrote the? I think his name is Vincent Jeffries. He can kiss it. But for whatever reason, his little thing that he wrote about is what tends to be all over the internet, and there's nothing
on like Wikipedia or something.
On Wikipedia, we had a little bit of help from fans, but I think his thing went first to AllMusic, and he's one of these like jaded guys that sits around in his underwear and hates on people. And
which is what I aspire to be someday.
Yeah, some guy that writes about interns that he's never had.
Chilling in mom's basement, he'd wipe the grease stains off the wife.
So according to his thing, we got signed. Our record came out right away. We released one song and did a tour, I think he says, with the Verve Pipe, and then promptly fell off the face of the earth, like all within like 6 months.
Okay.
So that's like the narrative that you'll find on the internet, which is hilarious. Yeah. But no, we did the 2 months with Kent. We came home, regrouped. The Verve Pipe's Frog record was just coming out.
Yeah.
And so everybody felt like, hey, instead of those guys having to deal with some band they don't know, makes sense. You guys have the same management.
Yeah.
We'll go out. So we did the same exact tour all over again, only this time with the Verve Pipe.
Yeah.
And that was different. There were some places where the freshman thing was still carrying them through, but they took like a couple years off, which kind of came back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah. I remember when that Frog record came out. So I actually, hilariously, I just found it in my CD collection looking for a copy of your record. I was trying to find the real CD, and I could not fucking find that thing. I don't know what happened to it. My CD collection got stolen at one point, so I only had like very few CDs left, but I did find that Frog Verve Pipe record.
Yeah, so we went out with them, and like I said, it was kind of up and down. Some shows were really great, and some shows, I remember... there would be like 7 or 8 people sitting on a floor.
Right.
It was like a theater or something for like, 500 people.
Damn.
And we were going like, whoa, wow. Because even on the Kent tour, who they were unheard of.
Yeah.
They would like almost every show was at least 70% capacity. And a lot of them were sold out. And so it was kind of we're like, what's going on? These guys had a huge hit 2 years ago, like a monster hit. And then we're running into some spots where there's holes, where there's just like gaps in some of the like people showing up.
Yeah.
And then
it was a weird time, man.
It was a weird time. About 2 weeks before the end of that tour, our drummer's father passed away. While we were like way out.
Yeah.
In the middle of, I don't even remember where. And then we got hit with this whole idea of, you guys better not leave the tour. You better stay on the tour.
Oh, okay.
That's
what management's saying? The label's saying?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. And it became a bit weird because we're like, well, wait a minute. We're going to go home and all going to go mourn the drummer's dad just passed away. And then their second take to that was like, well, then what about if just he goes home and the rest of you get another drummer? And we're like, well, no, this is our brother, essentially.
Yeah.
We're all going to go home and go to the funeral, and we're just going to stop. We're going to have to get somebody else to fill in the rest. And that was probably, in their eyes, not the right thing to do at all. Jeez. And in our eyes, it was like there was no other choice.
Yeah.
And
like,
it didn't end things, obviously, because we went for maybe 6 months after that and started writing and actually interviewing producers for the second record before we get to March, which is when the whole NSYNC debacle finally
I see.
Finally brought down the guillotine. So but I remember being very like kind of sick to my stomach about the fact that we even had to have that argument.
Yeah. And it's like, even like, come on, even like a couple of weeks, like we can't like,
well, it was just, even if we were going to go for 3 or 4 days and then come back.
That's such bullshit.
We needed some help to just jump off the road, go deal with this thing.
Yeah, like that's a no-brainer.
It's bad enough that he's been gone for the last 3 or 4 months and not even got to spend time with him as he's on his,
That's got to be such an odd line of demarcation, going from just like we're a tight-knit group of guys doing the thing that we love to like, hey, we've now transitioned into the big business world and like use it or lose it, right? Like shit or get off the pot.
That's what they wanted you to believe. Yeah. Like, we're giving you this chance. And if you are really thinking you're just going to stop because somebody died, then and we're like, it's like, where are we right now?
That's kind of the thing to make you stop if ever there were a thing for
it's like nobody's stopping either. Like we just need like, it's like, come on, like
we need a little respect window.
Like this is not, and it's not, and you guys weren't the headliner either. It wasn't like,
we were just an opener for the Verve Pipe. And so that was a bit mortifying, I think, to all of us, especially myself, because I really wanted to feel like I was, being a team player and doing everything I could do to make it happen. Because, you don't get this kind of an opportunity. And so I wrestled with that, quite a bit. I mean, there were many things throughout the process that you wrestled with, but that was a big one where I was just like, wow, this is really what you expect.
It's got to be so tough because it's so fickle, right? Like you're starting to ramp up and you've got that momentum going. So,
and that's kind of their point.
In theory, if you table emotion, you
see
it, but at the same time, it's like we're still fucking
it's
people,
like,
right? And we're all tight here. And
this is a week, that's not gonna kill. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Bullocks.
Yeah. Well, fuck, man. Thanks for fucking telling that whole story. So that's kind of how it went. One thing I wanted to bring up, there's so much stuff I want to talk to you about, dude. But I saw you guys. At what point did you play here in Grand Rapids, like at Monroe Center or whatever the hell it was? It was like they used to do those like music on Monroe or whatever. It was a KLQ thing or a GRD thing or something. And again, I was 13 or something. And I remember that concert pretty vividly. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of those. Was it the Grand Prix show?
It was big. I don't know if you guys were playing. I think you guys were headlining it, or maybe you were playing with the Verve Pipe, possibly. But it was a big one that like it was packed, And I remember even the DJ or what do you call it, the MC or whatever was like, these guys It must have been maybe earlier on, because I remember him being like, "These guys are just signed or something. They're going to be huge or something."
Oh,
He
yeah.
was like, "Yeah."
Oh yeah.
So,
well, if it was in Monroe Park, then yeah, we probably did maybe 3 or 4 big shows.
I was probably at most of those because
there.
we went to every single one.
Was that the old Friday night Rosa Parks Circle, or
Yes.
is that a different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was maybe Thursdays or something. This was way back in the day.
I think Eris kind of ran that, right?
Yeah, it might have been Eris running.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, yeah.
R.I.P. by the way. Eris just passed away.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, he did so much for us,
for Grand
and
Rapids
for everybody
music in general.
in particular.
Legend for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a tough funeral to go to.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I got a chance to do that with Pete and Mick and Scott, and it was a good chance for us to all catch up. And we're talking about trying to do some kind of a benefit concert kind of thing. The idea's come up and down 2 or 3 times, and it's started to get set up and then tore down and started to get set up again. So I don't look for that. That will happen eventually once we figure it all out. It's just, there's a lot of stuff to.
You need an Eris to put that kind of thing together.
Exactly. In his absence, it's not possible.
Eris should have set up his own concert before.
But I think the biggest show that we ever did in Grand Rapids was the Grand Rapids Grand Prix. And this was maybe after the Verve Pipe tour. So after the Verve Pipe tour, somewhere, I want to say it was after. It could have been between. But man, they had the Grand Prix in Grand Rapids for I think they only did it for 3 years.
Okay.
And they had a concert one night, and we were the headliners for that. And that was the biggest show I've ever played in Grand Rapids that I can ever think of.
Were they into it? I mean,
that was the height of our popularity. So Bombshell had been charting.
Yeah.
That was the one time that I can think of that Grand Rapids was like, oh, Papa Vegas is cool. Before that and after that, there was a few people. But yeah, we were never Grand Rapids darlings. We never won a Jammy. We were never on a YC. We never had anything. We were never in any of the right clubs.
Yeah.
We did the thing that we did, and had our little good fortune.
Which is weird.
How
it
is
seems
that
like you guys would have been.
The Verve Pipe suffered the same thing, and we
which is
talk
also
about it
weird.
Yeah, neither one of us were ever recognized.
I couldn't get fucking
anybody in
any of those people to pay attention to anything I was doing either. But I was doing prog metal, so they were not interested. We got played on WYCE a couple times, but it was just they were just not interested.
Yeah,
that whole thing.
Yeah, I don't.
But also, hey, whatever. They don't want it.
Exactly.
Fuck them, dude.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. And then, not to skip ahead, but well, I guess I'm gonna skip ahead. So you guys, you put out a record in was it 2010-ish?
Yeah, right around there. 2010, 2011.
I just spun through that again. So
Gravity
listened
Wars.
to yes, I listened to it when it came out.
All right.
Okay,
yeah.
But at that time I had moved on to I was kind of really into heavier stuff at that time or whatever. So I spun it. Then, and I liked it then, but I played through it again, and I was like, "Fuck, this is great! I really enjoyed it." So I'm guessing you probably produced that one yourself. Did you guys?
Yeah. Yep. That was the first one that I produced, and strangely, I did the artwork for that one.
Oh, okay.
Which I am the least artistic. Like when you're talking about doing graphic design, it's like it was me trying to do that as a joke,
sort of black hole kind of thing, or something.
Well, I'll tell you what I did, because it does look weird, but once I explain all the steps I went through, you'd be like, wow, I could have done that in one click. I took this big, gigantic whiteboard and kind of made what's that wall that the photographers use?
Yeah.
Infinity wall?
Yes.
And then I took a gyroscope and I took all this glitter and stuff and kind of made this snowstorm of glitter and had this gyroscope going around in this whiteboard, and just took a picture and then took it into Photoshop and made it dark and just made it look like it's going through the galaxies of nonsense. And it's just, so the idea was Gravity Wars, and it seems kind of pedestrian because I'm not an artist.
How different was it for you when you're looking at it just through the pure lens of being a musician versus now you're in charge of the production of the album and taking into account that aspect too? Was it a way different experience or just a little bit extra tacked on top?
I think it's different in the lens that you're looking at the thing through, because for me in the songwriting chair, I would say that I'm trying to achieve a melody and a mood and a thing that's kind of satisfying the creative songwriting part that I'm trying to get out. Whereas now in the production chair, I'm trying to like elevate that idea, and then I'm trying to also be aware of all these other sound aspects that I never used to even give a second thought to. And so
now you're the guy doing the microphone shootout and stuff,
right? And I'm sitting there going, "What do you like, this mic or that mic?" And I'm watching them go.
But with the Gravity Wars record though. So you're producing it, obviously you wrote the songs and stuff. Was it the same band? Was it all you guys, or was it mostly just kind of you doing it at that point, or like what was kind of?
Well, after Papa Vegas got dropped, we couldn't keep it going. Mick right away when we got dropped kind of took that as an omen that we weren't supposed to be doing this. I got to get back to regular life. Pete kind of shifted gears and started playing in Molly, that band.
Yeah, I know Molly. Oh yeah.
And so Scott and I were kind of left going, well, what should we do? So we started Miles to Mars.
Yeah, which I wanted to bring up too. I was following Miles to Mars as you were doing it. I'm telling you, man, I was into your shit.
And that's awesome.
Yep.
Miles to Mars was certainly less, I would say, guitar oriented at first. But by the end,
more electronic.
By the end of Miles to Mars, we had AJ Dunning on guitar, Kurt Hines on guitar, myself on guitar, John Victor on keyboards.
Kurt's incredible, man. I was always a big fan of that guy.
Yeah,
and of course AJ too, and everything.
Oh yeah,
you know.
And then we had Marty Hainan on bass and Scott on drums. I mean, it was a full-fledged, blown-out rock and roll thing.
I didn't know. Sorry, I didn't actually know that happened. I thought that was mostly just you guys in the studio. I guess I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, Miles to Mars played quite a bit, and
I missed out on that.
There was a year or so of shows with AJ, Kurt, and myself. 3 guitars, just bombastic. It was crazy. But as that progressed, Marty kind of started doing some other thing. I think he started playing with Rocket King. John Connors, who played with Troll for Trout, played with oh god, I'm gonna draw a blank on some of the. He's been in so many bands, but he actually did some Verve Pipe stuff. Liquid Sun, he was the bass player in back in the day. He still plays with Troll for Trout. He plays with Stefanski and Stefanski's cover band.
He of course was integral in stopping the Skynet infiltration of John Connors.
John Connors, Sarah Connors,
material, baby.
Yeah. So my point being, as that progressed, we kind of had different players coming and going in Miles to Mars, and so when the Papa Vegas record came around, I think on at least 2, 3, or 4 songs, Connors is playing bass. I think I got Pete back involved again. But other than that, it's all Scott's doing, I think, almost all the drums. I might be playing 1 or 2 drum bits. And then I'm definitely doing bass on maybe three of them.
Yeah.
And then my friend Randy Tate was playing keyboards with us in some of the Miles to Mars stuff towards the end. And then a lot of when we started playing again as Papa Vegas, originally Randy Tate was playing keyboards, and so he and I actually co-wrote one of the songs on there, that Yard Gnome song, which is kind of just a musical thing.
Well, I noticed it felt like there was more keys on that record. I was like, there's like synths and stuff going on with that. Which I love.
I do too, because my favorite band is Depeche Mode, and so I've always been obsessed with synths, and so having Randy involved in that record definitely made it easier for me to go, let's put some more synths on it, for his sake and for mine.
It felt right. The vocals sounded fucking good too. I was even just like, what reverb is this guy using right now? This sounds fucking killer.
Oh yeah.
Now, I'm sure you have no idea anymore, but
zero. Zero idea. Because for a lot of the Miles to Mars recordings, I was using a Roland VS 2480.
So that's like a rack unit or something?
No, it's like a totally portable digital recorder with motorized faders and everything. And you could actually burn CDs right from it.
Yes.
So it had all proprietary reverbs and compressors. You couldn't even add third-party stuff originally. Eventually, they switched it up, and you could add like Antari's Auto-Tune and some other third-party plugins.
Right.
But the Gravity Wars, I probably was using Nuendo, and frankly was probably using whatever reverb was in Nuendo, because I don't want to say how much pirated stuff I had when I first started, but it was a lot.
I had let's go ahead and bleep that all out. That's all good.
I had the plugin, so many plugins you couldn't even. You could pirate shit for days back then, dude. I had everything. They didn't know how to use any of it.
I had some producer friends in Detroit who gave me, like, I want to say big wallet that had 6 DVDs in it that had literally every single DAW and every single Waves bundle on Earth.
That's what we had too.
And so as I navigated away from the standalone Roland units, and my friend Randy, who I was just talking about, he helped me build my first computer. And I just loaded it up with all these things and just went to town. And then as soon as I started to go, okay, I think I actually want to do this for a living.
Yeah.
I bought Cubase, and then I think I went with Universal Audio for most of my plugins. And But now I'm all legit. But for a minute there, I was just like going gangbusters on it. Let me try this. Let me try this.
I had the full Waves, the cracked Waves Audio Gold or Platinum bundle, whatever the fuck it was, dude. Yeah.
It's funny how much better that worked than when you actually pay for it.
Yeah. Indeed.
Nothing sounds quite as good as the sound of free, you know?
Yeah, for real. So I want to talk just a little bit more about the fucking Hello Vertigo a little bit, because like I said, I spun back through it. I was a big fan of it in the day, like I already said. Spun back through it recently. First of all, it's not on like iTunes and shit. I couldn't find it.
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct. That's on one of us to grow some kahunas and try. We've been warned that they might just take it right back down again. And so like we haven't tried it. I know.
Put it on through whatever. Get it on there.
We'll do
it. So first of all, I start listening to it on YouTube, which of course I want to hear. And like the YouTube audio sucks. So I call my brother and I'm like, do you still have that Papa Vegas record? He's like, I think I do, but it's buried in my CDs and they're in storage. He found it on a hard drive from from when he was rocking what are they called? iPods or whatever from that era. And he sends it to me so I can actually hear the actual like whatever it was CD quality audio or whatever. So I spun through it. Here's a couple of impressions I had. There was more atmospheric stuff happening than I remembered. Guitar, like weird guitar things, like especially later in the record. I was like, I never heard this stuff before. As a kid, I'm saying, you know, you're listening to it now as an adult who's been making music and stuff. I'm like, there's a lot going on here. It still sounded great. I thought the vocals sounded great. I was kind of amazed at how much I remembered like every song. I was like, oh yeah, I know, like kind of know the words and the hooks and all this stuff on this song.
That's cool.
Again, the artwork fucking held up. I don't know. I guess that's all I got to say about it. It was fun listening to it again.
Well, cool. I appreciate that. That's great. I pull it out every once in a while and listen to it. I just have always had a hard time listening. My family would be the first one to tell you. Like if Papa Vegas song comes up on a playlist somehow and we're got something going, that I'm the first person to run over and hit skip.
Skip. I think everybody's like that. And then I saw you guys later on. You guys played like the Grand Rapids Art Fair. It must have been around the time that the later CD came out. You remember that?
Gravity Wars. You're talking about when that came out?
Yeah, it must have been around that time.
Yeah, we did that. We did Meyer Gardens.
Okay.
Around that one. We did Intersection. When that came out,
we went down to see you guys at the art fair.
Wow,
I was like, fuck yeah, they're fucking
That's
playing.
Awesome.
Do you remember this? You might not remember this, but some dude fucking comes up on the stage in a bike, one of those low rider bike things.
Do you remember
and
this?
Starts riding around the stage.
Do you know? I don't know who that was.
Did you know him? Because
yes.
I was like, what the fuck?
Ralston Bowles, ladies and gentlemen, Ralston Bowles.
So at least it's somebody you knew or
somebody we knew, yeah. And that was
cool.
very rude, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I was almost like, I was about ready to go up there and pull this guy off.
That sounds like the name of a guy who would do something like that.
Doesn't it?
I'm glad you remember that, because we were like simultaneously laughing our asses off and also like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
We had the same reaction, laughing and kind of going, wait a minute, what the fuck is this guy doing?
I guess it's a memory now. Though.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll never forget that though.
Stick something in the
That's hilarious that you said it. Yeah, right?
Well, listen, man. This week I've been so excited about Joel coming on the show. I just haven't been able to, look up any news, or I don't know what's going on.
I know. I heard you've been super busy and probably just a little bit out of touch with the comings and goings of the world.
Just
I would imagine
spinning Papa Vegas records over and over. I'm out of touch.
That's for sure.
Maybe let's do a little something to bring the people up to speed here for the week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. The goings on.
The Dangerville podcast presents News of the World.
Yes, sir.
Coming in a little quiet. All right. Apologies in advance for this one, sir. But let's get going here. First up on the docket, we've got Minnie Driver leaves beach after telling cops man was masturbating nearby. Yeah.
Wow.
This is some of the hard-hitting news we come with on this show. This is stuff you're only going to get for Dangerville, ladies and gentlemen.
Minnie Driver. All right.
So a recent Malibu beach trip for Minnie Driver and her son took a dark turn as they witnessed a man masturbating nearby. Yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately for the perpetrator, Miss Driver was only one of two things in the police report to be referred to as Minnie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Upon being questioned, the man firmly denied allegations that he had pleasured himself while staring at Minnie. Jesus, that's disgusting. Do I really seem desperate enough to do something like that? I was clearly looking at her son.
What?
We're looking at her son.
God damn.
Pretty good.
Glorious
Wow.
misdirection there. I know.
Wow.
Hilarious, right?
Wow.
All right, moving right along because that one started off so well. We've got Disney star Raven Simone declares she has psychic abilities like her famous character from the show. Yeah.
Okay, that's the I'm So Raven.
I'm So Raven.
I'm so Raven.
Yeah.
So during a recent podcast, Raven claimed that she has psychic abilities and has experienced multiple dimensions, stating, I do have moments where I will see a scene that is going to happen to me in another dimension, and I feel it in my body.
Okay.
Her exploration of other dimensions has been both arduous and incessant, though Miss Simone remains confident that if she looks hard enough, she'll eventually find one in which her show doesn't suck.
Smash! Smash!
Oh, we're off to a rocky start here this week, gentlemen.
I don't even know what that show actually is.
I'm not sure I know that
Some
one.
old Disney bullshit
Yeah.
show back in the day. I think she's got some kind of reboot in the works now.
Okay.
I digress, and nobody cares. All right.
Somebody does.
Texas man undergoes multiple amputations after bite from an insect that most people have near their homes.
Ouch.
Jeez.
So 35-year-old Michael Kolhoff recently had both of his hands amputated up to his forearms after a flea bite that caused typhus, and he became septic.
Jeez.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah.
Upon reading the story, the longtime Chili Peppers bassist issued a harsh retort, saying, "This guy is full of shit. I remember the incident clearly, and my bite didn't even break the skin."
Hey.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm going to have to allow that one.
You are correct, sir. Yeah.
Gotta allow the flea bit.
That is a gratuitous use of the happy sound bites here for what has been a lackluster segment for sure. We're going to step it up right here with the last two, gentlemen.
Here we go.
All right. Probably not. This is the worst one ever, dude. This is going to give the Aretha Franklin's couch joke a run for its money for the worst joke ever. A silent hazard of underground climate change. A silent hazard lurks underground in our big cities as underground climate change is causing the ground to deform, resulting in buildings sinking, cracking, and potentially collapsing.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scientists and architects alike are urging citizens to proceed with an abundance of caution as this potentially lethal problem has been classified as silent but deadly. Silent but deadly.
Oh, oof.
The SBD.
Oh, boy.
Oh. Thankfully, we've got but one more of these to grind through. Motorized sperm bot helps sperm reach egg. Did you read about this one?
Wow.
This is pretty incredible. So,
All right.
a recently released video shows a sperm bot, which is a metal helix controlled by a rotating magnetic field that can wrap around a sperm's tail and guide it successfully into an egg.
Wow.
Yeah. In an effort to mimic the natural conception process as closely as possible, once the sperm bot has delivered the load, it promptly comments that it's pretty tired, has to get up for work early the next morning, then rolls over and goes into sleep mode. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your lackluster.
The Dangerville Podcast presents News of the World.
It
Tough sledding this
gives
week, boys.
cab
Tough sledding
fare.
this week.
Here's your cab fare. Fuck, man. The news shit that I saw that I was dying about, though. Have you guys seen any of this shit about Lizzo? You know,
Lizzo. I heard a small amount of it. Apparently, she's not as nice as we all thought.
Yeah. Which I've never heard a real song, but I've seen her like play the flute and shit.
Yeah.
She's cool or whatever. But yeah, apparently she's like like making her dancers like do all this fucked up shit, and like one of the things was there's like these sex shows in Amsterdam or something, and they put a banana in their vagina and they make people eat the banana, which is hilarious if you want to do such a thing. But apparently she like made her dancers do this and they didn't want to or something. What the fuck, Lizzo?
In this day and age, like probably not. They're out to go. That's not going to go over especially well.
Well, and then like you were saying too, some of the other allegations are like she's like telling
body shaming one of the
body shaming her dancers for gaining weight or something. And
Hello.
Where are we at on this one, Lizzo? I thought that was your whole shtick.
Pot meat kettle.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
There was also apparently this thing where she was like oppressing religious views or whatever, and somebody was atheist or, some other non-believing sort of some kind. And she went on this whole rant about how no job and no career is going to get her away from the ideals of God. It's like, dude, you're having people like munch bananas out of the bonus hole of your backup workers. Like, I'm not terribly well versed in the Bible, but I'm reasonably certain I don't remember reading that part of it.
You ever actually heard a Lizzo song? Like what is? I mean, it's rap, pop, some sort, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I've only heard clips of it. I just have never paid that much attention to it.
Me either.
It doesn't tickle me. Tickle me.
We talk about it because we've made so many fucking jokes about Lizzo, honestly.
And now I don't want a banana.
No, I'm not hungry after all.
No more bananas.
Yeah, gross. Yeah, the whole thing's wild though. It's just like, God damn, girl, like what do you got? You got it made right now. You're fucking huge, literally and figuratively, and like making millions of dollars. And
that's
like, what are you doing?
Big swing to take.
Yeah.
Like, how is that not going to go
doing?
south immediately for you? I don't know about that one.
God,
it's almost like that's just what happens when you get to that point.
You start to like not have
somebody comes in and slows your ass down.
That could be. That could be. Yeah.
My whole goal is to get this podcast big enough where we can both treat people like shit and just skewer their views and make them do what we want.
Start buying bananas by the case.
That's right. You walk in, it's a whole bunch of bananas on the table.
When I get that Costco card, that's going to be the sign that we made it. We're stocking up on that produce for sure. Did you see a little bit of sad news here? Did you see Pee Wee Herman? Paul Rubens passed away. Pouring out for Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee. Yeah. I was never a huge Pee Wee Herman fan.
I was the same. Yeah. I mean, I saw the movie. I liked it, but it never like I didn't own it. I didn't want to watch it over and over again.
I've got a Pee Wee Herman pull string speaking doll.
Oh my God.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Which I'm gonna have to get that bad boy
you
up
should
on
have brought
eBay,
that tonight, dude.
Yeah,
we could have been pulling the cord on your jokes, dude.
Yes, that needs to be here for sure.
He got his start. I forgot about this. I knew it back in the day, but he started with the Groundlings, like that big improv thing out of L.A.
Yeah.
And Phil Hartman was one of the original recurring characters, Captain
Phil Hartman.
Phil Hartman helped Pee Wee Herman develop the character of Pee Wee Herman,
right?
Which is kind of crazy. And also, like the first Tim Burton movie ever.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Pee Wee's. What's the first Pee Wee movie? Big Adventure or whatever it is.
Big Adventure. I think.
Yeah.
Was it Tim Burton?
That's like the first Tim Burton movie like ever. Well, I mean, it's not a Tim Burton movie if you follow me. It's just like Paul Rubens like gave this dude his kind of big break to direct this fucking crazy ass movie. But
wild.
It's Tim Burton.
Did not know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, and then of course, fucking, it's like nobody's talking about it. I'm like, you remember he got caught jerking it in the theater or whatever? Like, and like nobody's mentioning this, and I'm like, all right, he died. All right, we're not gonna talk about the fact that like hilariously, and then he owns it to his credit, goes on the MTV Music Awards as Pee Wee Herman, and goes on and goes, anybody heard any good jokes lately? Do you guys remember that shit? Because at the time, it was just all Pee Wee Herman jerking it jokes.
Yeah.
In defense of Pee Wee, like, what are you supposed to do in an adult theater? Like, that's kind of par for the course, right?
Nah, I guess that's true. I don't know.
I think that's why they're there, actually.
Right. He's like, what? I thought this is what we were doing.
I appreciate the dialogue.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'll allow it. He was in. They've been showing so much shit online and stuff, and like, it's like, oh, I forgot he was like in that. He was in Blow
for a while.
He was in Blow, had a big part in that.
Killed
with Johnny
Blow.
Depp.
He was actually great in that.
He was fucking in the Tim Burton Batman movie as the Penguin's rich father.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Soak it in a little bit.
Yeah.
Soak it in. Yep.
Soak it in.
Yep.
And that was DeVito as the penguin, right? Okay.
Yes. He was an awesome penguin.
He was the best.
He was
one.
great. Yeah.
Slimy.
Mm-hmm.
Although you got to get it up to Colin Farrell, who I'm kind of hit or miss on, not the greatest, but man, he was pretty fucking dominant in that role as a character actor.
Did you like that new Batman? Did you catch that shit?
I haven't seen the newest one.
Yeah,
no.
it's great.
No.
I loved it. Yeah.
No, I'll have to check it out. I will definitely. I think I've watched almost all of them.
Yeah.
So.
What kind of shit you like to watch?
Oh boy, I'm a sucker for comedy stuff. I still love like Arrested Development.
Yeah, man,
that never gets old.
Yeah.
The original run of Arrested Development.
Letterkenny. I mean,
I've only seen clips. Everybody's like,
yeah,
it's so funny. I haven't actually seen it myself. But.
It's a real love it or hate it. I feel like there's probably not a lot of middle ground. It's either like this is hilarious,
and there are
and
episodes that I can like do without. But man, by and by, I'm just like, oh man, I'd love that kind of stuff. I just love smart ass humor.
Have you watched? I haven't seen it, but he's got that spin-off show that Shorzy. Is the Shorzy voice.
No, and frankly, that he was probably my least favorite character because I found him to be just kind of annoying on Letterkenny. So that's probably the reason I haven't watched it. But I probably should because I probably would
gone in there.
I would love
it. Right. Have you guys seen either of you guys fucking check out Oppenheimer yet?
I did. I went and saw that.
Did you see it in the IMAX with the whole thing?
No, I just did. What was that guy in before?
That Cillian Murphy dude, he's been in tons of shit.
No, but there was the Irish gangster, the Irish mobster.
Peaky Blinders.
I watched all of that. I loved that. I got really into that.
Yeah, my wife watched the shit out of that.
So it's weird to see him in there.
I've heard nothing but great things about that. I tried to watch a little bit and I liked it, and I got to get back to it. But the accent is so thick, I have a difficult time following.
Yeah.
Speaking of Batman, he was.
He's the Scarecrow in those.
That's perfect. That's
those Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
That's perfect.
He was also in a movie, I want to say it was called Red Eye. It was like some
crazy horror movie. He's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
There's a great sci-fi movie called Sunshine that he's the star of.
Oh wow!
Where they go to the plot is they're trying to put a nuclear, which is hilarious, a fucking nuclear bomb into the sun to restart the sun. And it's one of these like they're on a spaceship and everybody starts going crazy kind of movies or whatever. It's a good movie.
Your standard spaceship.
Standard spaceship.
They go crazy, yada yada.
Do you like Oppenheimer?
I thought it was good. I mean, it was weird to see him play, Oppenheimer after watching all that Irish mob stuff.
Right.
But I mean, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting to watch. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I kind of learned in there. So hopefully it's correct. You never know how much they're over dramatizing it.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It is based on that book that's pretty well documented.
So it's pretty accurate, I think.
It's still a movie, but it's still pretty accurate.
I haven't seen it yet, and I hate to spoil it for anyone else that hasn't, but did they figure out the bomb?
Yeah.
See, now that's, I guess, one
spoiler alert.
One of the things that I thought was weird about it, like they kind of paint it in history that it's like his thing, but then in the movie, it really felt like it was a lot of hands. And that without all those hands, he would have never done it on his own.
Right, for sure.
So he kind of gets all the credit for this thing.
Yeah.
That like 100 people were responsible for all having a big role in, and they kind of, their names aren't involved, but it's just all about him. Yeah. But when you watch the movie, he's kind of like pacing the halls. Like, I hope these guys figure it out. And
That's one of those feats where you're probably not going to figure it out on your own. Like, there seems to be a little bit to that one. A nuclear physicist, I am not, but that would seem to be a pretty difficult one to knock out solo.
But only one can be on the cover of the magazine.
You did not need to see it in the IMAX too, by the way, at all. It was so fucking like close up of these old dudes' faces, and you're just like, God damn, you know, like we saw it in the IMAX, and it was just like, holy shit, you know, like way too much close up of this dude's face right now.
Right. Yeah.
I just watched a flick. I know you're a bit of a horror movie guy, probably less so these days. I don't know if you are. It was called Hereditary.
Oh, I did.
Oh man,
it was
wild.
Fucking fantastic, man. God damn, I love that movie.
Yeah, that was a fucked up movie.
I'm pretty pumped that director, that Ari Aster dude, has some other flick with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes.
Who I think arguably is like the best thing going out there right now. I haven't seen that yet, but it's this whole like dreamscape nightmare scenario from what I got from the preview. It looked pretty rad. So
Hereditary was great though.
Yeah, that's a wild fucking movie. Did you guys see that Midsummer movie or whatever?
I read all the reviews about it and have kept meaning to see it, but I haven't. I want to.
I heard amazing things.
I know.
Same.
I keep kind of like trying to dive in, and then I'm like, I
think both of those are from that A24 studio who has been fucking killing it for a handful of years, man. Yeah, they're kind of doing the smaller indie things. They seem to go a little bit more in that horror realm, but the stuff they do is fucking fantastic. And nowadays, that's my big bitch. Like we were talking about Batman before. I made an exception for Batman, and if I want to, I'll watch a Spider-Man movie, although I haven't done so in years. But like, I think I'm personally all set on superhero movies henceforth.
Same.
Wasp,
we
man,
bitch about it all the time on here, like enough.
And it's so hard to get an original plot that hasn't been done before in A24. They're just coming out with bangers left and right.
Yeah, and I think they're in that sweet spot. They're in that Goldilocks zone where they don't have anybody controlling what they're doing yet. And as they progress and get bigger, it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain the ability to have that much freedom and control that they can continue to put out these great movies without the constrictions and the confines of the bigger money that's coming in to help them. We can't do that. That's too dangerous. So as long as they're able to stay back and not quite get that big, they'll continue to make.
They're big enough to be self-sustaining and still make a profit and do their own thing, but not so large as to be fucking consumed.
They're willing to take chances.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
That's what's exciting to watch.
Yeah, I've been kind of just bitching out on horror movies lately. We've talked about this a little bit. I hear where I'm like, I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm just like, I just only want to watch something that's got a happy ending.
Yeah.
I was out for a few years. I'm diving back in. Back in that
I'm like,
I can't, jumping in head first once again.
I can't dive in. Going the totally other direction, the biggest fucking budget shit ever. I also watched the new Indiana Jones in the theater. You guys Indiana Jones fans?
Ooh, yeah. I went and saw that.
Yeah, I liked it. It's been getting shit on it. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I cried a little bit at the end. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm a movie crier, though. I'll admit it.
Yeah, I thought it was good. There was like, it had some of those moments where they were just completely kind of borrowing from the original.
There was some callbacks.
Here it is. Like, look, we're doing it together. You're like, oh,
agreed.
On.
We're like, we know, we've seen them. I get it. Yeah.
But that's that thing that A24 is not willing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully they don't get there.
I feel like Harrison Ford dragging around the dialysis machine throughout the film kind of
that's what it was called.
Indiana
Jones and the dialysis machine.
The quest to survive.
The temple of dialysis.
I thought it was, I'll just say this about it. I thought it was stronger all around than the Crystal Skull one before.
Yeah, I agree
think
with
most
that.
people think that, it was a little more, it was less like effectsy, and it was just, I don't know, it was a little more.
Right.
But I get it. They were definitely calling back to
He had the rolling ball. Oh, we got to run.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the same regurgitated things.
I just love those original movies so much that I think it's kind of like, no matter what they're gonna do, I'm just gonna be there for it. So I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, so I enjoy it.
All right,
Indiana.
I somehow missed out on those in my childhood. Those were like B movies, and I just
so good, dude.
Was that
so
a
good.
It joint back in the day?
Yeah,
it was.
Biggest, best movies, man. Yeah. Listen up. Spielberg and George Lucas, man. The dynamic duo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I dug it. But yeah, I thought Oppenheimer was fucking I don't know if it's as great as everybody's saying it is.
Yeah,
maybe.
I agree.
The hype machine is real high on it, which is kind of unfortunate because it really is a great movie, but I can't think maybe the hype machine's a little too hyped on it. But
well, Christopher Nolan's pretty massive, so I think he's got a lot of that benefit of the doubt, and it's the greatest thing ever, regardless of whether or not it really is.
It's pretty good. It's pretty fucking great, but like it's just that hype machine's hard to.
Barbenheimer weekend.
Yeah,
That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
That movie has made, Jesus Christ, $250 million plus at this point. Probably far north of that at this point, but man.
It's supposed to be good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What is that rated, by the way?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering.
Don't know.
I thought it was like
it's got to be a PG or a PG-13.
13.
It's got to be. It's supposed to be more adult than.
Every time I drive by the movie theater, I see all these 4 to 6-year-old girls lined up.
Oh, really?
I'm like, is that?
No. See, I think
for
it's
them.
A little more
is that
adult.
for them?
Yeah.
But apparently it is.
When we went to see Oppenheimer, there was this huge gaggle of girls, but they were like 13, 14 or something, all like in pink dresses and shit.
Well, they were going to Barbie.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah. Well, 13
No,
or 14.
13, it looks like.
They were with us in Oppenheimer.
Is it 13?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't get these little 6-year-old girls going to Barbie.
People might not understand what it actually is because I definitely think it's a more of an adult movie than.
It's like a tongue-in-cheek. Yeah. It's like,
right. Yeah.
Not for little kids. Come on.
And Ryan Gosling's just, what a gorgeous
It's real
man.
dreamboat. Real dreamboat.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I know a lot of people that have seen it. I got friends that have seen it and stuff. But
There's a great line from this not that great movie I saw where they were talking about different top 10 blogs, and they're like, what do you got? It's like, I'm going to write one about cats that look like Ryan Gosling. And the other guy's like, are there cats that look like Ryan Gosling? And he goes, if you look hard enough, they all do. So yeah, it's pretty spot on. Well played.
Yeah.
Do you get into stand-up comedy? I mean, you said you're listening to Rogan and stuff. So
Yeah. I do here and there. I find that I don't end up having a ton of time to watch all the latest and the greatest stuff.
Yeah, me either.
So, I mean, I've always throughout my life really kind of enjoyed it. Like Chappelle was like, I have all the DVDs of the Chappelle show, like straight away when that stuff came out. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm in, take my money. Here it is. And so, yeah, I mean, I try to follow them. Brett Kreischer kind of is funny. I went and saw with my stepmom and siblings, Bill Maher in Detroit. That was fun.
I saw Bill Maher live. It was in Detroit.
This was like a year ago.
Okay, mine was maybe 3-4 years ago, so it probably wasn't the same show. But I'm a big Bill Maher fan.
This was that theater down at the Ford Theater in downtown, and I had never seen him live before, and he was great.
Yeah,
we had a super good time.
A lot of his stand-up is actually like a lot of the stuff that he does is the bits at the end of his show.
Right.
He ports it over into his stand-up word, which is fine because it's great, But I love those rants he does at the end of his show, man. God damn, that stuff's fucking hilarious, man.
He's really catching a lot of shit, which is interesting because he was so far left-wing for so long, and now he's kind of coming back to the middle, or at least perceived to be that way, and he's catching all sorts of shit from the shy-heart super Democrats.
So he's saying, he's like, I'm not the one that's changed. I'm the same as always.
Same shit.
And the goalposts keep moving. It's like, I'm the same liberal guy, and it's like people don't even know what this even means anymore.
Yeah, which is a fair assessment.
Getting old and pissed off, and it's hilarious.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He's spot on too. He's got a really good podcast too. You ever check that out?
I haven't listened to his.
Not political podcast. That's his whole thing with his podcast.
There you go.
He's like, I really wanted to do something that's just like I mean, what we're doing, just sitting around talking shit with people I know and our friends that aren't really interested in politics, or and for other people that aren't interested in politics that could get in. So yeah, he's always got killer guests, like Woody Harrelson and just all these guys that he's friends with and stuff. So it was a really good podcast.
Yeah, people don't want to hear that serious shit. I did want to dive a little bit into the Ukraine-Russia situation.
Yeah, all right.
Got you here just for a minute.
Let's hear your hot take on that. For a moment. I'm sure you're.
It's really hoping somebody's going to jump in with something very quickly.
Well, Putin and well, I don't even watch the real news at all.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's just fascinating that we're back here. To me, I mean, that's what I would say about it. I remember being young and being tucked into bed and being completely terrified that we're going to be in some kind of a nuclear war with Russia. I mean, at my age when we were young, that was the big fear. And so to watch us get all, oh my God, we have to spend all this money and do all this. And really we need to reignite this fire that I thought we had finally kind of put to rest for a little bit. I mean, and it's like, but you don't know how to go about it because at the same time, there's this country that's suffering. And traditionally, we're that country that runs in to save the day.
Yeah.
But the way that this thing kind of unfolded has just made it so tough to know what to do because the last thing I want is for my kids and their kids to worry about fighting with Russia again. I'm like, how did we get back here?
I know.
And it's an odd, and I know dick about this, to be clear. So
I'm the same way. I'm the last person that should be talking
We're
about
just joking around.
There's all like... Ukraine's got all these accusations of like it's a neo-Nazi hotbed and stuff, so they're not exactly saints at all this.
Not at all.
Everything's
they're not our traditional
so
going.
In that direction.
We normally don't run in and say these kind of
wild,
places we usually get in and fuck with and overturn.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what we're doing.
And that Zelensky dude's, he's a comedian.
He's a comedian.
And they were saying that like he used to do bits where he'd play piano with his dick and stuff. And we're like, I didn't know that. I figured he was
I don't think I heard that either.
Yeah, but apparently, which is fucking hilarious.
I don't put it past the whole situation.
That's a leader you can get behind right there. That's a guy I'm standing arm in arm with. I'm going to war with that guy.
Honestly, I would vote for
God.
fucking Bill Burr for president or Bill Maher or somebody, some hilarious fucking dude, you know?
God, yeah. And then there's that. What are we going to do with that? President. Oh.
Yeah, well, here, God only knows what the fuck's going to happen this next round, dude.
Yeah.
You guys soaking RFK at all? He's fucking making a big run here.
I love listening to him talk. I mean, he's never going to be able to do it, but I mean, I just don't see it happening. But
I kind of feel like he's doing it now because he knows that like he's not going to get a nomination with an incumbent, and because he's running as a Democrat, obviously you know, but also like unfortunately with his weird vocal thing, like
can't imagine having that for president.
Yeah, it's just kind of and it sucks because that's not something he can help, you know, or whatever. But you know,
boy, does that guy make you feel like shit about your body though? Jesus Christ, the guy's 69 years old and he's just shredded. Fuck, man.
He's got those Kennedy jeans. He's working out all the time. You know?
Oh my God.
The Kennedy jeans, literally and figuratively. All his workout photos is literally rocking Levi's. Benching 250 plus.
I like him all right though. I mean,
I do too. I mean, it's sad that because of the voice thing and. I mean, I don't know like necessarily where he stands on. You know, you've got the people that say he's just completely anti-vaxxer, and then you've got the people that say, well, he's not necessarily that. He's like, you know, so I just he's a complicated animal, and the voice thing doesn't help.
No, it doesn't.
And so I think that there's enough things right away that the people that are extremely left are not having it. And so it's just like he all of a sudden becomes like a Ross Perot, like a throwaway vote, which is kind of scary.
So you kind of don't want it. You're right. That's a good take. Yeah.
Well, when you get classified as being that guy, you know, some crazy out there anti-vaxxer,
which is
fundamentally you've got to have the backing of where the big money's coming from, right? And again, like I don't know dick about this, so I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert.
Don't listen to me, people.
But when you listen to him talk, it's like he seems to be bringing up very salient, reasonable points,
1000%,
backed in data,
as they say.
And then people are just like, no, that's some wacky talk. But it's like, well,
he dives in hard on his episode of Rogan on fucking, his stance on vaxes and stuff,
and that was how he cut his teeth. Though was like he was an environmental lawyer, so not
he didn't
exactly
say anything that I thought was completely crazy.
No, me either.
I would say that.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't say one thing where I was like, no way, that's bullshit.
And he even says about that, he's like, listen, like people are labeling me at this, but honestly, this is a small issue to me. I'm an environmental lawyer, like, you know, or whatever. This is what I really do. You know? So he's just kind of like, you know, he's like, this is kind of the only time I'm really going to talk about it is on this show. But, you know, hey, the environmental lawyer thing, I'm all for, man. It sounds like he's done a lot of good work.
Yeah.
So
I'll
allow it.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Either way, 5 years from now, the whole goddamn thing's going to burn to the ground. So who cares at the end of the day?
Indeed.
That's what it seems like. For sure.
So, fucking man, what's going on with you? You got stuff coming up? Is Verve Pipe playing? You still...
Oh, wow, yeah. We got to catch up with the Verve Pipe thing. Yeah, I actually quit the Verve Pipe.
Okay. Woo. I didn't know that. Nice. I didn't know that. All right.
I'm coming out.
Is this a known thing? Am I just late to the game?
Yeah. No. It was maybe like a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay. So I'm late to the party.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that was a big to do or anything. It just kind of, all the stars aligned. The studio had been crazy busy. Brian's brother, the original bass player, had been doing a cover band for years and years and years with their oldest brother, Scott, who is also a singer, guitar player, called Three's a Crowd. And they would play all over town. And Brad had been doing that for like the last 10 years or whatever. And Scott's wife became sick, and he kind of put an end to the cover band thing. And so Brad had like 3 years off, and he really started to miss music. And COVID happened, and the Verve Pipe was slowing down. The studio kind of slowed down the first year. The second year, it went nuts when they were giving away money. People had been cooped up and locked up for a year writing songs. Exactly. So for 2022. The studio was the busiest it had ever been, and I was doing like 50, 60-hour work weeks in the studio.
Hell yeah.
And we would play a show here and there.
Yeah.
And the band started to feel like it was, I mean, everybody at the time started to feel like they were getting political because, we were all locked down and trapped for 2 years.
It was a crazy time for everybody.
And so it started to get like very, like you were picking sides, and it just was starting to feel... I don't like politics, first of all, in music. I don't like when Bono gets up and tells me what I'm supposed to think.
100%, dude. Yeah.
Or even Tom York. Even if I agree with what they're saying, I just don't, that's not why I'm here.
Yeah. It's Peter Gabriel for me, who's one of my favorites ever, and he's very political too. And
right.
It's like, all right,
And as, stuff started to open back up, it became clear to me that, like, this is going to be a very tricky thing to navigate because I don't want to be a band that makes political videos, and they had started doing some of that.
Oh, okay.
And so the long and short of it is Brad wanted to come back into the band.
Okay.
And
which is cool.
It's cool, exactly. And I've been an imposter for the last, 20 years on and off. I mean, I'd had a little stint where I took off to do the Bob Guinea thing, but essentially I just been kind of filling his shoes.
Yeah.
And so Brian threw a phone call my way in 2022 at some point to the effect of, hey, I'm not telling you that by any stretch that you've got to walk away from this, but Brad really is dying to come back into the band. And so if you had any inkling at all that you kind of wanted to walk away from it, he would love to pick up the slack. And he's like, but I'm telling you, if you want to stay, it's your gig. You've had it, whatever.
Yeah.
But just
and
think
you guys
about
are good
it.
Friends.
And we're good friends.
Yeah.
And so this was literally the week that I was going to go on vacation with my wife to Hawaii and go stay with her sister. And I think by the second day of vacation, I had already drafted up my big resignation. I mean, so it just felt like with all the world events that were going on, all the madness, it seemed like the band just wasn't going to play that much. Mm-hmm. I just felt like it was the right time for me to go, you know what, let's just focus on the studio.
Yeah, and if the studio's popping, I mean, yeah.
And not only that, but I mean, I've kind of since I've been doing the bass role in the Verve Pipe, I've put all of my songwriting and all of that stuff kind of on the back burner and kind of put a rest to it. On my computers, I'll, show you, I have 50 folders of songs and songs, all things that I've kind of messed with and started and not quite finished. And so I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to just walk away from being the bass player in the Verve Pipe and to get back to just the studio. Mm-hmm. The traveling thing was never my favorite thing. As an introvert, I just prefer to be home, not in a van and driving all over the place. And so I just kind of made the decision to let's have Brad come back in. Let's have me go back home and then hopefully get back to putting out some of my own music again. Before it's just too late. At 53, it already feels like it.
And I hear that. I mean, too, it's like, you were, you had your own band and your own songs and stuff. And you were just kind of like, I guess you could say, quote unquote, filling in on bass or something like that. So it's
How different of an experience is that, starting a band and being in right from the ground floor versus kind of joining up midway through? I mean, is that like a difficult thing to kind of acclimate yourself to all that? Or
I mean, I guess the easiest way to answer that is we spent the first whatever it was hour or whatever talking about all these amazing stories and all these amazing things. So I mean, if we step back from that and get into the last 15 years, because we got to realize that was like over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody would come up and say, hey, it's Joel or whatever, it was like, you're the bass player from the Verve Pipe.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you had ever asked me from age, 12 to 32 years old that someday you're going to be known as the bass player from the Verve Pipe.
Yeah.
I would be like, what?
Right.
And yet that's what it's been, and that's what it is. Still, if I happen to be in a music store or something and someone goes, oh man, Joel, you're playing the Verve Pipe, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And so all that stuff that we talked about, no one knows but the three of us and a few other people.
It's me and my brother apparently who were like, Papa Vegas fucking rules.
And
no, that's not true. You're selling yourself short a little bit.
That's the difference, I guess. And that's part of the thing that maybe made it feel like it was time to just get back. I feel like I took a 20-year vacation for myself. Yeah. And then it was an effort to stay. And I know why I did it. I mean, I wanted to stay in the music business. And
Not a bad gig.
No, and it was fun. And I loved it. And I still love dearly all those guys.
Yeah.
Well, we just hung out a couple weeks ago at Lou's Pool, and we had it was like we were all still in the band together.
Sure.
It's just that, we're into different spots.
This might not apply. It sounds like you're kind of back to writing your own stuff behind the scenes and getting ready to get back into that, which is awesome, by the way. But like in the interim, how much does the studio kind of scratch that musical itch versus playing? I mean, obviously it's not a 1-to-1, but does it kind of satiate some of that? Is it...
As far as the live thing, not at all. I would say that the studio has slowed down my need to record myself. Mm-hmm. So whereas before I was doing a lot of studio stuff, I was constantly in the studio recording myself. Yeah. Now I spend more time than I used to do that recording other people. Yep. And so the idea of after all that, like it's basically like if you're a painter and you paint 8 hours a day and then you come home and you're like, I need to paint my bedroom, but you're like, I just got painting 8 hours, and so I'm gonna you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to bed and then I'm gonna go paint for someone else again tomorrow, and then when I get home I'm probably still not gonna paint my bedroom. I'm gonna go paint somebody else's.
It's kind of my life in general.
Do you feel like
so I just don't record, but the thing is that's funny is I still write as much. Like if we pulled up my phone right now, there are 300 ideas in voice memo form ready to go.
That kind of sucks too, because I wish those things were there in reality too. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of the same way with you there. Obviously, I'm not recording bands in the way that you are, so I'm recording myself more. Right. But
do you feel? Sorry, I got to jump back. I got another. Do you feel like it's a help or a hindrance not having the studio as kind of a steady stream of income? Does that alleviate some of the pressure of like, I've got to write something, I've got to do the music thing? Or is it like kind of the starving artist goes away a little bit because you have that other stream of income, if that makes sense as a question?
It makes perfect sense. And I think I would say that it is a hindrance. And I would also follow up with that's what tends to, and not always, but in most cases, as the rock stars that we kind of grew up with and loved, when they were hungry, they would write songs that were deeply meaningful and that we, could really find something that we could identify with. And then as they became comfortable, as they became successful, sometimes for a number of years, they would still be able to do that. And whether or not that was using starting points that were created when they were desperate and still digging hard, or whether that was were somehow able to keep it going, that's I'm not sure. But what always seems to be the case to me, in most cases, there are a few exceptions, but usually as people become more comfortable, their art form kind of starts to follow a downward trajectory. And that has everything to do with some of the things that all these, people that interview with, philosophers, it's the struggle in life that creates the best art. So once you pull that struggle out of the scenario, you just, that's not to say that you can't do something nice or create something cool, but it's definitely not as deeply impactful. Maybe
I mentioned it one other time, but I'm pretty sure it was Bernard Hopkins, super famous boxer back in the day, was getting interviewed, and he basically said something to the effect of it's real hard to get up and train and run 10 miles when you're sleeping in silk sheets. When that starving artist aspect
that's the essence of it.
You're just comfortable of it.
And I don't. That's just true. I don't think that you can. And again, there are, always going to be exceptions to that rule.
You know what I found, dude?
Here and there, but I mean, it's a small amount.
Yeah.
It
I
really
found
is.
that, like for songwriting and stuff, that like, in some ways I had kind of also already said all I wanted to say.
Yeah,
And like,
sure.
even just like on the guitar, even it was kind of like, and then I found myself just kind of repeating myself and stuff. So like,
Yeah.
it wasn't even that like the struggle's there or not. It was just kind of like, it's just kind of like, I kind of already like said all this. You kind of like have your ideas and, you can like do all that. And it was kind of like, well, now I'm just kind of like repeating myself. So I
Right.
really struggled with finding new ways to like, and that's where I started getting into like those songs you've mixed for me and stuff. I was like, well, I'm just going to start with a synthesizer. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I kind of like, I'm just writing the same fucking Tool riffs again on guitar. And it's like, it's like, you can only do so much with this. So like, let me start with
Got that
something
strongly
else,
worded letter from Danny Carey.
I know.
Cease and
The cease and
desist order
desist
from
letter.
Tool lawyers. Yeah.
But so I think there's that too. So all that stuff about the struggle and all that. And there's a certain like, when you're a certain age, you really have something that you want to say too. And then I kind of feel like you say it.
Right.
And then like, this is my experience anyway. And then it's kind of like, well, I kind of said all that. And now I'm kind of like, I'm good.
Right.
You know?
Well, and that is the perfect segue into the next part of that, which is, so we covered the struggle thing, and that's all true. But what the second part of that equation is that when you're young, there's a confidence in you, and I see it in my kids, and I see it in the younger people today, where you know better than everybody that's older than you.
Yeah.
And then and that's fine. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
You did.
It's like
you
you
did.
have
we all
to
did. Right.
think-
Well, we
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And so from a writing standpoint, it becomes very easy to spew your every emotion and throw it down and be ready to steadfastly stand behind it and say, this is what's true. But then, as you know, as you sit and you listen to people talk and you listen to dialogue and you start to contemplate things, and then you're 30 and then you're 40 and then now I'm 53 years old, you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I am Ruth Langmore, and I don't know shit
I
about
don't know a
fuck.
goddamn
Right.
thing.
Or I don't know fuck about shit, or whatever it is she says. But that's how I feel. And so now, every time I push that pen across the paper, I look at that line and I go, I can't fucking say that. And I cross it out again. And I just, so that confounds the whole thing. So there's the struggle, and then there's the fact that you realize, I don't know shit.
Yeah.
I can't say that. I don't feel that strongly about this. I'm not sure I agree with that. And you start to second guess everything. So that's where the writing starts to plateau and go off the cliff a little bit.
Yes.
Now, how you maintain that, and these few people that do it, I don't know the secret to that, other than you just have to constantly look inside yourself and try to like map out some form of meaning for you that you have the balls to stand behind and say.
Fuck, man.
That's tough.
If music was completely off the table as an option career-wise, playing, recording, nothing having to do with music, what would you have done with your life?
Besides porn star. Which is obvious.
Yeah. No, I don't think that would have worked out so well. Oh man.
These are the type of hard-hitting questions we like to ask on the Dangerville podcast.
I would like to be a rally car race car driver.
Nice.
Rally
Very
racing.
nice.
Good answer.
I would love to rally race.
Have you messed around with any kind of like go-kart or anything?
Driver.
Or
Oh,
is that
yeah.
just like an
Oh, yeah.
aspiration? Okay.
Oh yeah. I have a Mazda Speed 3 right now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the front wheel drive bullshit version of a rally car, but
Have you ever tried to do any? Cause some of those courses, like you can go out and take your own car on the trail.
Yeah.
Or fuck
I
around
was
with
going to
any
do
of
that with
yeah.
my 3.
Yeah.
yeah. My stepdad used to ice race. So
Nice, yeah.
back in the day, they would go to like Turk Lake out by Greenville and some of these places, and they would make a course, and they would have all these cars that they had, done special things to the tires to. In my stepdad's car, they had 2 e-brakes. One was to the passenger side front and back tire, and one was to the driver's side, so that you could set up for corners and stuff on the ice.
Damn.
And so, I mean, I grew up doing stuff like that. So, I mean, that would be my secondary dream. Would be some
God
kind
damn, that'd be a
good
blast.
answer.
Yeah, good answer.
Do you like
Sure.
classic cars? You get around muscle
I
cars
don't
or
know
anything?
anything about cars.
Okay,
That's what's
okay.
the sad part of that equation.
Yeah. I got into
I would be the driver
classic
guy that would
cars.
be like completely dependent on somebody that knows what they're doing to put the car together.
There's something that's
100%,
so visceral and fun about it, and I didn't grow up with any of that either, right? Like I decided like I wanted to motorcycle back in the day, and like my dad kind of rode growing up, and he gave it up. He was like over in the thumb. He got over. He was like there's too much traffic or whatever. So I never had any exposure to it. Don't know dick about cars, motorcycles, or anything else. But got a bug up my ass to do it, and it's just like there's something so inherently fun about going fast and just ripping around and just taps into something, man. It's a goddamn blast, dude.
Love it. Yeah, we had a 3-wheeler growing up, and we lived on like 10 acres, and we had one of those like trails through the woods where you're skimming trees as you're hauling ass through the woods.
3-wheelers are Widowmakers, and they outlaw those things.
I know why firsthand.
Yeah, for real.
I did wear my helmet. I definitely went off that thing through the air many times.
Yeah, those things. Yeah,
loved
fucking Widowmakers.
Loved every second of it.
Yeah,
loved it. So yeah, that would probably be my next second choice.
Yeah, nice. What about you? What would be your fucking career there?
Yeah.
Besides porn star.
I mean, if exclusions are off the table and capacity and ability and everything else, like I would love to do. I always loved playing basketball growing up. Goddamn, doing that'd be great, or something in like the NASA type field.
Yeah,
I think something with like air travel and space travel.
Oh God, I'd be down with that.
I know that'd be where.
Wait a minute, that's my number 2. I changed. Hold on.
IQ and SAT scores would seem to make that prohibitive. Unfortunately,
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be the fucking astronaut.
What about you, Zane?
It's got to be. It's got to be fucking some sort of NASA.
Give it 10 years, man. Elon will have all of us buzzing up there for a fucking 2 or 3
oceanography.
That'd be great too. Yeah.
The unexplored. Anything the unexplored where it's
what I'd like
not
to do?
Fully known.
I'd like to build a submarine that goes down to the Titanic and make it be a tourist attraction.
Too soon.
Wouldn't work? What?
Whoa.
Oh.
Pour one out
For the fucking Titanic people.
Boom.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think maybe we ought to fucking wrap this shit up.
Well,
what do you think?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you guys having me, man.
Yeah, man.
Super fun.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it was a blast. I'm real glad you came out.
Yeah,
we'll do it again. We'll focus on the second record this time.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about fucking recording shit, dude. I'll talk to somebody about recording stuff as long as they'll let me. You know what I mean? So
we can do
there's so
that.
much stuff and microphones. We got into it a little bit in the basement, but like,
we could do a whole thing about just that if you want to. Yeah.
And I want to. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll set it up.
100%.
We'll set it up. I'd love to.
All right.
About that time,
All right.
baby.
About that.
All right. Peace, bitches.
See ya. Thanks for having me.
Bye.